Actually, I dodged it. No, I don't know. I guess I didn't really know it was raining that hard this morning because I woke up. We had this conversation about being here and not live at St. Thomas Sports Park today. And I don't know if you probably assumed this. And then I promptly immediately fell back asleep for like an hour. Like the second we stopped talking, I was like, okay, and was just out like a light.
I'm not like that. I don't know how you're able to do that. I am not. Once I'm awake, I'm awake.
I will drink a half a cup of coffee and immediately fall asleep.
It's crazy.
I know that is psychopathic behavior, but the first step is acceptance. And I have accepted the fact that I will go work out, come back, sleep. Sleep and I have a very good relationship.
So Brett Batchelor making things happen for us today on 104.5 The Zone. You can hang out with us, 615-737-1045, or on 104.5 The Zone TV, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. One Titans transaction to address that came down about half an hour ago, or really about an hour ago from the organization. The Titans have added the body that Mike Vrabel was talking about after the retirement of Buster Skrine to start training camp, as Shakur Brown was added to the roster earlier this morning. Most recently, a cornerback for the Pittsburgh Maulers of the USFL. So the first USFLer to be added to the Titans is Shakur Brown, 23 years old, from Detroit, Michigan. Played his college football at Michigan State, went undrafted in 2021. Some practice squad stints with the Steelers, the Chiefs, and with his hometown Detroit Lions. So there you go. Mike Vrabel said we're adding a body. They add a body, except it's not an 11-year veteran in Buster Skrine.
You know, the classic phrase is that if you need a good prospect, go to the Pittsburgh Maulers. Pittsburgh Maulers create NFL talent. NFL veterans, one might say.
Was it Pittsburgh that had the controversial video that floated around of cutting that former Michigan running back for wanting pizza instead of chicken salad? Was that Pittsburgh?
It might have been. I honestly don't even remember that story. What it was that was the big USFL controversy. I'm trying to think of because that was the only one. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of something else with a defensive line coach.
I'm not sure, but either way, Shakur Brown added to the Tennessee Titans at the cornerback spot. So first team All Big Ten in 2020, had a really productive college football career playing for the Michigan State Spartans, but he is now on the Titans roster. So a couple of transactions to speak of this week, as Terry Godwin, the former Georgia Bulldog, added at wide receiver as Juwan Green was waived. So it'll be interesting to see how those battles pan out as the Titans look for depth in those positions. Where would you say between corner and wide receiver, where they've made moves this week, more depth is needed? I mean, apart from the starting spots, because you understand what Robert Woods and Treylon Burks are going to have to mean for this offense, and you know what Christian Fulton and Caleb Farley are going to have to mean for this defense. But behind those guys, where would you say the biggest need is, as that's obviously where the Titans are paying attention this week?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion. I would probably say corner, just because of the veteran leadership and the voice that they lost in the locker room, and Buster Skrine, a guy that Mike Vrabel has said is one of his favorite players he's ever worked with out of that locker room. I think at the wide receiver position, they've been set for a little while. Buck has talked about this a lot, that they're not going to go get Will Fuller. They're not going to go bring in a guy for a one-year deal and probably on $5 or $6 million to come in and help that wide receiver room where it stands right now. The other reason I say corner is because I don't know if Roger McCreary has a set home on the outside on this defense. Is Roger McCreary a nickel guy where he's played a lot at Auburn? Is he outside? I'm interested to see how they use him. And until I know the specific way that he's going to be used within that defense, I worry a bit about their depth at corner. I worried about their depth at corner more than wide receiver before they even, lost Buster Skrine. So for me, the Treylon Burks kind of story being put on the back burner, so to speak, gives me a lot more confidence about the wide receiver position. It is interesting, though, that this time last year, we were talking about how there were 5 or 6 wide receivers battling for about 1 or 2 spots. You know, it was Marcus Johnson, Chester Rogers, Nick Westbrook-Akina, Mason Kinsey. Now that conversation isn't quite as relevant to this camp, because really it's between, Nick Westbrook-Akina, Racey McMath, Josh Malone, maybe for one of the last couple of spots.
I mean, Dez Fitzpatrick has had a good offseason, but he factors in.
I think he absolutely does. So I think the emergence of Dez Fitzpatrick being take it for what it's worth, but Mike Vrabel giving him the offseason award for the offense and speaking very highly of him. That was not the case a year ago. Last year, Mike Vrabel could not have been more disgusted when he spoke about Dez Fitzpatrick's performance at training camp. This year, he appears to be pretty happy to volunteer information about him. So that makes me feel better at the wide receiver position than I do for this team at the cornerback position right now.
They are exceptionally young at cornerback right now. When you look at, let's just say, the favorites to make the roster right now, right? Christian Fulton and Caleb Farley, Elijah Molden, rookie Roger McCreary, who drafted out of Auburn in the second round a few months ago, and Chris Jackson. Nobody out of those names that I just listed have been in the league for longer than 3 years. So it is an exceptionally young group that Buster Skrine was going to be a very critical part of as a veteran, as a depth piece that played very well for them after they acquired him last season. So certainly work to be done there. And guys are just going to have to step up. If Chris Jackson and Christian Fulton are going to be the grizzled vets of the group as third-year NFL players, then they're certainly going to have to step up and play like it and act like it in that locker room. But I do think they have confidence in those guys. But again, all that to highlight the move the Titans make today of adding former USFL Pittsburgh Mauler Shakur Brown to the cornerback room. So before we move on and talk about what Mike Vrabel had to say yesterday about one player that has grabbed most of the headlines from the first week of Titans training camp, we have to address what Kyler Murray said yesterday, calling his own press conference, Jimbo Fisher style, in Arizona to address the questions about his work ethic after the independent study clause placed into his contract by the Arizona Cardinals. You know, I really realized how unprecedented this contract was, seeing former players react to it.
Right.
Seeing guys like Ryan Clark on ESPN talking to Ramon Foster here in the mornings about that. This is not normal. And if you missed it, the independent study clause added into Kyler Murray's contract requiring 4 hours of independent film study a week for the quarterback. Not a day, a week. And Kyler Murray called a press conference yesterday to address the questions about his work ethic. And let's hear a little bit from Arizona Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray. Get that up for you here in just a second. But Murray wasn't happy yesterday.
No, he wasn't.
He was not happy about the narrative that this created.
Right.
And Brett, you've got it? Okay, go ahead.
To those of you out there that believe that I'd be standing here today in front of y'all without having a work ethic and without preparing, I'm honored that you think that, but it doesn't exist. It's not possible.
So that's just a snippet of it.
The Oakland A's would never.
What's that?
The Oakland A's would never.
Yeah, I struggle with this because how does he think this looks? Like, if the Arizona Cardinals felt this to be necessary, and by the way, they put out a statement, they removed that clause from his contract. I feel like they're just making it worse. They're just giving us more reason to talk about it. I mean, Kyler Murray spoke yesterday, and if they had just left it at that, it would have been left at that. And we would have still talked about it, but that would have been it. But the Cardinals continue to pile on. They put out a statement about their belief in Kyler Murray, and I'll pull it up here and read it for you. But, I mean, what did you make of this entire situation? Did Kyler make this better or worse when he stepped up to the podium?
Well, I think the side of this that made it so much worse was just whoever was in the Arizona Cardinals organization that leaked this out. Like, Arizona finally coming to a deal and finding some common ground between themselves and Kyler Murray. A lot of that goodwill was undone by whoever just leaked this out to the media. I mean, that's a wild thing to do after an offseason where you thought you might have to trade your franchise quarterback. You might have to start all over at the position. You finally get a positive out of this relationship, and then you sour it a little bit by putting this out there and putting it into the universe to make him look like someone who's being held accountable within the court of public opinion. It's crazy to me. Look, I mean, I think if Kyler Murray is going to have these conversations, they need to happen privately. And it needs to happen in the same avenue with which this information became public. Go to the organization and say, what the hell? What in the world just happened? And that this needs to be, A, either taken out, or B, whoever put this out into the universe needs to be held accountable for doing that. Because now I'm getting dragged on the internet and dragged by whoever has a microphone to talk about these things. And he shouldn't have had to call his own press conference. I mean, the entire thing is a dumpster fire inside of a dumpster fire.
I want to hear more from Kyler Murray. Let's play some more of that, Brett.
Today, I'm talking today because, I feel it's necessary, with what's going on as far as regarding me and the things that are being said about me. It's almost, to think that I can accomplish everything that I've accomplished in my career and not be a student of the game and not have that passion and not take this serious is almost, it's disrespectful, and it's almost a joke, you know. It's, to me, it's I'm flattered, you know. I'm honestly flattered that y'all think that at my size I can go out there and not prepare for the game and not not take it serious. It's disrespectful, I feel like, to my peers, to all the great athletes and great players that are in this league. This game's too hard. To play the position that I play in this league, it's too hard. And I don't do this often. I don't talk about myself, but today I feel like I have to. And so I'm gonna list the accolades. You know, to go 43-0 in high school in Texas. Some are going to say, oh, it's high school. That's cool, but nobody else has done it.
We're fading it out after he cites his high school record. Like, how did you think we're going to react to that? When the news comes out that the Cardinals need to put a clause in your contract just to have you study film, how are we supposed to react to that? That's not normal.
Right. I think for me, it is more of a knock on the Arizona Cardinals as an organization than it is anything that makes Kyler Murray look bad. I think Kyler Murray is in kind of an impossible situation here. Other than the fact that I don't think I would have, started a press conference and brought even more light to this. I wonder how many people had no idea that this was a story until Kyler Murray called a press conference to talk about it. This is the fire that the Arizona Cardinals have started by doing this and by leaking it out. That's the biggest issue I've got here. But, man, I don't think this is going away this season for Kyler Murray.
Oh, he's going to continue to field questions about it. Cliff Kingsbury's going to continue to field questions about it, and they're just going to have to fend this off because of what has been created.
The first time they lose a game in October, since he is Mr. September, Kyler Murray, the first time they lose a game in October, it's going to be like, oh, okay, well, wasn't doing the homework.
Yep.
You're too busy playing Call of Duty with your video streamer buddies, not doing the homework. I mean, this is going to continue to be a story, I think, for the course of this whole season.
Here's the Cardinals statement. Quote, after seeing the distraction it created, we removed the addendum from the contract. It was clearly perceived in ways that we never intended. Our confidence in Kyler Murray is as high as it's ever been, and nothing demonstrates our belief in his ability to lead this team more than the commitment reflected in this contract.
Except that we leaked out the fact that he's got to study for 4 hours a week. Give me a break.
And Greg Cosell, whose voice we certainly trust around here, you can hear him with Buck Reising each and every week on the Install on the 104.5 The Zone podcast network. I saw this quote from Greg where he said, the issues with Murray on Ross Tucker's podcast, the issues with Murray must have been so severe that the Cards clearly felt they had to publicly humiliate the player. It's not been a good week.
That's never great for your franchise quarterback.
No, not great. Okay, we're going to move on and talk rookie wide receiver Treylon Burks, who did not have an independent study clause in his rookie contract. Has he been the biggest headline in the first week of Titans training camp? We'll discuss it, plus an interesting nugget that Mike Vrabel gave us yesterday about some of the side work Treylon Burks was doing at practice. That's next. It's the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone.
Country Financial is the place that you need to go if you are at all concerned about having proper protection for your home. This is something that a lot of people don't think about until it's already too late. Did you know that the cost to rebuild a home has increased by almost 50% since 2019, which I'm sure everybody can relate to, between inflation, logistical issues, all these things that have made just generally everything cost more. If something happened to your home, it's important to make sure you can rebuild. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial, it can. With their additional replacement cost coverage, you can be sure your home's full value is protected. Country Financial provides insurance and financial services to help you prepare for the important moments in life, even the ones you hope never happen. So find your local representative at countryfinancial.com.
The Buck Reising Show is brought to you by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
It is indeed. And Jonathan Schaefer's just walked into the studio with donuts.
Best producer in the world.
WWE SummerSlam donuts.
Oh.
What is that?
Of Donut Distillery.
Oh.
Love
Fantastic.
the tone of those. Oh, my gosh. They look so good.
Oh, they're mini donuts.
Wow.
Oh, they look amazing.
There are many of them as well.
Lucas Panzica, that was Will Boling. I'm Lucas. Brett Batchelor
Unfortunately.
making it happen on the other side of the glass. Jonathan Schaefer holding up the donuts for the Zone TV cameras, where you can hang out with us on Twitter, Twitch,
Go to SummerSlam.
Facebook, and YouTube.
SummerSlam.
Buck Reising at St. Thomas Sports
Those look
Park,
really good.
taking in Titans practice in the bubble. Weather did not permit them to practice outside, which means weather did not permit us to broadcast outside at St. Thomas Sports Park. We'll be back at it on Monday. Will and I just holding down the fort until Buck gets back. So as Will eats his first donut,
It's really good.
we were talking about it during the break. The amount of videos that comes out from Titans training camp is so absurd. Buck
why
Reising,
is this?
in a group chat of me, you, and Buck sent us consecutively 14 videos at once and then 8 videos. So by my math, that's 22 videos. And I imagine there's more to come of these warm-up drills, getting ready, not even practice, right? Just your mundane pre-11-on-11, 7-on-7 drill warm-ups. And we were talking about it. Nobody in the NFL does practice videos like Tennessee Titans media. And I guess it's a good problem to have.
I guess.
Especially when you see the audio coming out, from players and media scrums. Like, it is frustrating from our perspective when Josh Allen down at Jags practice says something about, he's asked about Doug Peterson and just the difference in culture this early in training camp between Doug Peterson and Urban Meyer last year. And he says, well, it's professional now. He talks to us like we're adults. A pretty scathing review of former Jags head coach Urban Meyer, and not a video of it to be found.
Yeah,
we
nothing.
wanted to play the audio, and nothing was. If that happened here, there would be 20 videos of it consecutively on your timeline. So
I wonder why that is, because I feel like Nashville and digital media has become a nice partnership. Like, this has become a big digital media place. Like, you have a ton of recruiting services based out of Brentwood, based out of Nashville, 247, Rivals, On3, like all these different college football media conglomerates that were started by people in Nashville, that all these people you listen to and hear on, recruiting rankings and services and things of that nature, odds are they live here. If they don't live here, they are here quarterly in order to meet with their bosses and meet with their people. So there's that element of it. Then you have, I'll plug our partnership with A to Z Sports Nashville, or an organization that does good work, that has a lot of videos, that has a lot of writing content, that has just tons of stuff coming out of training camp that I don't think is normal. They hustle harder than 99% of people that do these things, because I don't see anyone else hustling that hard other than other affiliates that they have in other cities to get videos like this out. But Buck is kind of blowing up our phone. Like, there's a cell phone tower on fire somewhere in Middle Tennessee because Buck Reising is trying to push through so much 4K video on his cell phone to us.
Well, I know some people do appreciate it. Nate Washington, former Titan, former Steeler wide receiver, tweeted out yesterday, I appreciate all the Titans media I follow. Going to get plenty of clips of practice work day to day from the team. My Steelers family, does any media personnel report daily video clips from camp that I can follow? So
That's
I do
interesting.
think, I think fans and former players enjoy seeing that stuff. So I guess it's better to have too much than too little.
Do you want some of these donuts?
I will have some. I will have some during the break. Liz Allison of the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is going to join us here in a few minutes. But first, let's hear from Mike Vrabel yesterday about some work that Titans rookie wide receiver Treylon Burks was getting in at punt returner. Here's Vrabel from yesterday's press conference.
Well, the most important is that you catch it, that you can secure the ball. I think that's where we're at right now. I think that, one thing that he showed when, in college was that he was tough to tackle, with the ball in his hand, that he was, he could run after the catch. And so hopefully just trying to find as many places to get guys that can help us. And if he can catch and secure and make the first guy miss, then he has a chance to help us. But most importantly, he's got to be able to take care of the football. And I would say that there hasn't been an evaluation for the punt return job. Catching it from the jugs, maybe a few from the punter, from Stoney or Brett. but without gunners coming at you or out live action, that's been hard to, evaluate. I think that he's getting more comfortable catching them, and hopefully we can see him out there in preseason.
So take that for what it's worth. I mean, maybe they're just trying to put Burks into different situations, and as Vrabel said, we'll probably see some of that during the preseason. Looking at Jim Wyatt's notes from yesterday's training camp practice at TennesseeTitans.com, talked about some of the guys that were getting that work fielding punts: Treylon Burks, Mason Kinsey, rookie Kyle Phillips, and Terry Godwin, who they signed just yesterday as they waived wide receiver Juwan Green. But that is an underrated question mark for this team in 2022, is who returns punts.
I think it is, and I think from the Treylon Burks perspective, as we talk about him being the biggest story of the first week of camp, I want the football in that guy's hands as much as possible this preseason. Even A.J. Brown, I think we quickly forget that guy was hurt going into his rookie training camp, which kind of set the tone for some of his injury issues throughout his career as a Tennessee Titan. But now that the Treylon Burks stuff is behind him, of hunting hogs and fishing and not being in shape coming into minicamp and slimming down a little bit, I want him to be the star of this camp. I think he needs to be the star of this camp, and giving him as many opportunities to have the football in his hands, whether that's as a punt returner, as a wide receiver, as a guy lining up in the slot on the outside. I'm here for all of it, and I think Mike Vrabel is smart to integrate him as much as possible into what this team is doing right now. Get that guy as comfortable as he can be, because last year against the Arizona Cardinals, it looked like you hadn't done any independent studying. It looked like you hadn't looked at anything that they had done, and your wide receivers and your quarterback had not played together whatsoever. Obviously, catching punts off the jugs machine does not impact your ability to play well with Ryan Tannehill and have chemistry with him. But I think there's something to be said that Treylon Burks needs to feel like a focal point of this offense going into week one. That guy needs to be comfortable. That guy needs to be living his best football life going into week one against the New York Giants. I think any opportunity to get him with the football in his hands, I'm all for it.
Well, Jael in the YouTube chat says, I don't want the number 1 or 2 wide receiver returning punts.
I typically wouldn't either.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't want the first-round pick returning punts in general. Now, the Titans have done that with Adoree Jackson. I think everybody remembers the debacle that turned out to be Adoree Jackson as a punt returner for the Tennessee Titans. And Jael continues saying, let the rookie from UCLA do it. They're exploring all options right now. Kyle Phillips certainly has experience as a punt returner. Treylon Burks did it a little bit his sophomore year at Arkansas. And I'm going to pull up his punt return stats from his time in Fayetteville, but he didn't do hardly any of it his junior year, his final season with the Arkansas Razorbacks. They just didn't utilize him in that way. In 2021, he returned 0 punts and 0 kicks. In 2020, he returned 1 punt, 0 kicks. And in 2019 was when he returned 12 punts for 130 yards. And that was his freshman season.
Well, think about this, too. When you talk about roster construction of what the Tennessee Titans are going to have to do this year, I would imagine this team is carrying 3 quarterbacks into week 1. 3 quarterbacks on this roster out of camp. So that means one position that you have had in the past under Mike Vrabel and John Robinson is no longer going to be there, because Mike Vrabel and John Robinson have carried 2 quarterbacks. It's been Logan Woodside and Ryan Tannehill these past few years, which meant that you were able to carry a return specialist. It meant that you were able to bring on somebody like Racey McMath, somebody that is there to be a return man and to be a special teams ace and not much other than that. Now, one of those places that you might have to compromise is the return position. I don't think you have the numbers now with a third quarterback to have a return specialist on this team. I think it's going to have to be Kyle Phillips. I think it's going to have to be Dontrell Hilliard. It might have to be Treylon Burks, the guys to fill in the punt return and kick return roles. I honestly do think that Kyle Phillips is the guy that's eventually going to stick there. But again, we saw this with Adoree Jackson. It doesn't matter the athleticism that you have at that position. If you're muffing punts against the Jacksonville Jaguars in a game that the Titans had no business losing back in 2019 with Marcus Mariota still at the quarterback position, you just can't be back there. So might as well do your due diligence, figure out how comfortable the guy is in that role. But I think Kyle Phillips ultimately becomes that guy. I think it's one of the rookie, playmakers at that position.
Yeah, and I could see Burks continue to get that work because of the reasons Mike Vrabel said of securing the ball, making the first guy miss, all traits that he's going to need as a wide receiver for the Titans. But I'm with you. I wouldn't expect that to be the full-time situation for Treylon Burks. But there are questions at punt returner. There's questions at kick returner for the Tennessee Titans. Those are both spots that they have to fill from last season. Does Trenton Cannon, is that where he makes his mark with this team, the former 49er running back that is currently on this roster? So definitely questions there that we haven't talked about a whole lot until Vrabel addressed it a little bit yesterday with Treylon Burks getting some work at the punt return spot. But you say he has to be the star of this camp. Look, we've been up there this is the third day that we've gotten to see training camp action. Rookies reported about a week ago, so they've done a little more work than that. But I think he certainly has been, because he was the biggest concern going in, and that concern was completely alleviated on Wednesday. It's still incredibly early to be talking about stars of training camp. They haven't even put pads on. Sure. But at the same time, it's been nothing but positive for Treylon Burks. Everything has been headed in the right direction.
I think if you could pick, as Titans fans, 2 players to be the standouts through the first week of camp, you would have picked the 2 guys who, to me, have impressed the most. And I'm curious if we're going to agree on the defensive side of the football, but Caleb Farley, to me, is the guy that is standing out the most, not just because he has had exceptional plays or because he's been terrific in what we have seen. It's more of what we haven't seen. We haven't seen him on the side field doing nothing. We've seen him as the number 1 cornerback, the number 2 cornerback, matched up against Treylon Burks, matched up against the best options that the Tennessee Titans have on offense. So I think when you talk about why Treylon Burks is the biggest storyline right now, well, A, it's because he was the biggest question mark. B, because he's replacing the biggest wide receiver talent that you've had in a 2-tone blue jersey probably in 15 years. But also because now he is doing more, because he is adding the punt return element to his game and at least working more at that. Because in the past couple of months, the story has been, what is Treylon Burks not doing? So the fact that we are now talking about the extra things that Treylon Burks is doing, albeit probably a safety option and a 3rd or 4th punt returner, I'm totally fine with that, because now we can talk about what he is doing and what he's not. So I think if Titans fans could have picked 2 players to be our biggest storylines, our biggest talking points out of the first week of camp, it's the 2 guys that you wanted to be in that role right now.
And Titans fans will be eager to see Treylon Burks, how much work he does get with that first preseason game at the Baltimore Ravens, August 11th. That's coming up. That's 2 weeks from yesterday. But before that, race weekend starts a week from today. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix will run through the streets of Nashville for the 2nd consecutive year, starting a week from today. And Liz Allison of the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix joins us now to talk about it. Liz, thank you so much for the time this morning. I cannot imagine how much your head is spinning with race weekend coming up. We really do appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. And yes, my head is spinning. It's crazy. I think we're sleeping about 2 hours a night. I came into the office this morning and they said, "Did you send emails out at 2:25?" And I was like, "Yeah, pretty sure I did this morning." So that's where we are, but it's exciting. We can't wait.
You hear her every single Wednesday on 104.5 The Zone, Off the Track at 8 p.m. And Liz, I was going to ask you, is it coming down the pipe pretty quickly? It sounds like it is. I know this is a massive undertaking for you guys, for the city of Nashville, and here we are 1 week away. Do you feel like there's enough time between now and then to do all the things that you guys need to do to get ready for race weekend?
Oh gosh, there better be, right? I mean, I think for us, because we all are perfectionists, and we all it never stops for us. We always want more, because we want more for the fan experience, for certainly our sponsors and partners that are a part of this Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. We want more, so we keep digging. But at some point we have to go, okay, this is it. We're a week out, because we're a week out from today when the track opens. So it is, as you mentioned, it's a big undertaking. It's a huge undertaking. And I came from the NASCAR side of things. So I am, or was before I joined the team here almost 2 years ago, I was always accustomed to, a permanent structure, a racetrack that you go back to every year. It's the same racetrack, and you know what to expect. And the building is there, and the media center is there, and you know what to expect year in and year out. And you don't have to build anything unless you choose to. For us, we're creating this race course every year. We do it again. One of our big new projects this year is Club RPM, is the NetJets Club RPM, and it's a huge undertaking. I've been working on it every day for 11 months, and I was just out there yesterday thinking, oh my goodness, all this work, and it will come down in a little over a week, when it's only been up for a few weeks. So, to turn the streets into a race course, and for anybody that's listening that hasn't been down to the stadium in the past 2 weeks, take a cruise down there this weekend, because you'll be able to see all of everything that's going up from a structure standpoint, all of the suites, and I mentioned Club RPM, and all of the fencing around the actual course. In just a few days, Monday, when we hit Monday, it's all hands on deck. Our Ferris wheel will start going up on Monday. There's just so much to it, and that's why our heads are spinning. So to answer your question, I don't know that we ever feel like we're completely ready, but I know that we're in good shape.
Liz, I had such a blast getting to see this event last summer. It was so much fun seeing something like this for the first time. I'd never been to a race of any kind and absolutely loved it. What is the difference between maybe a little bit of the track this year as opposed to last year? What changes have been made specifically for this event as opposed to 2021?
Well, I mean, that's a two-sided answer, I guess I would say. First of all, just the event itself. We looked at year one, and I mean, certainly with year one, we were just so grateful to get through it and for people to have a great experience. There were things that we learned from year one that we could do better. There were some things that we wanted to add. I mentioned the Ferris wheel and Club RPM, and some of our suites we're making some other changes with. East Club is another hospitality experience that we wanted to go in, and we totally revamped that. There were some things that we learned with East Club in year one that we wanted to change. So it was a great opportunity for us as an event to go in and change and add to. So that's the exciting thing for me, is that these are things that we know that either worked well and we wanted to make it better, or things that maybe didn't work so well and we wanted to make them better and then great. And so on the event side, it's that. And then of course our music that we've added this year is just so exciting, the whole lineup that we have. And then as far as the track course itself, there were some areas that were a little more difficult to maneuver than others. So we do have some softening of some of the turns. Tony Kopman and his whole crew has been working really hard at just kind of refining what was already in place and making it a little more raceable, if you will. So there's subtle changes, but I think there's enough change that it will make a difference in how the drivers are able to maneuver these turns.
Liz Allison with us here on 104.5 The Zone. So, Liz, Lucas and I both are huge Formula One fans. I am very new into this. Lucas, much longer than I have been, has been into this sport. But it's incredible. So many of my friends in their 20s or 30s, and so many people have been so captivated by Formula One, by Drive to Survive on Netflix. Does it feel like this event kind of came at the perfect time for the growth of this sport in the United States right now?
Oh, absolutely. And I love that series too, by the way. And I think, and I'm a motorhead. So I think that for me loving it, but then for other people outside of you guys and myself that just liked it because maybe they heard about it and started watching it and just kind of got pulled into it. It's done amazing things for their series and honestly for all forms of motorsports. I mean, we're seeing motorsports really on the rise again. Jonathan Schaefer, that's my producer and certainly a friend of you all, we talk about it a lot when you look at NASCAR and motorsports, but really NASCAR, in the 80s, early 90s, that was such a time of growth for the sport. And then, then there was a little bit of I would say, a break in that climb and even a little fallback, if you will. And now we're seeing that whole fan base kind of explode again. And I really credit that series for a lot of that. I think that especially for those people that weren't interested in motorsports, I think that people are intimidated by motorsports. They think that if they don't know what's up underneath the hood of a car, or if they're not a car person, that they can't enjoy motorsports. And that's not the case at all. It's competitive. And as you know, from watching that series and just being a fan of motorsports, generally speaking, there's so many personalities of the drivers, of the teams, and there's so many dynamics of what goes into each team. And, this driver leaving this team and going here, and, this driver and having drama with that driver. There's a lot of that. And so it's not just turning wrenches, if you will. There's so much more to motorsports, and it's very competitive, and I love it. And I can tell you, for somebody that was around NASCAR and lived and breathed NASCAR for so long, I really didn't have an interest in other forms of motorsports because I never gave it a chance. And then for me to join the team here, I'm such a fan. I love Formula One. I love IndyCar. I love NASCAR. I love the SRX series. It's just, girls can love it and guys can love it. And you don't have to understand turning a wrench to enjoy motorsports. So I always encourage people to go to a racetrack. Racing is one of those sports that when you watch it on television, it's not the same. We can do it for those of us who've been to racetracks. You can watch it and you can enjoy it. But if you've never been, you've got to go. You've got to smell it. You've got to hear it. You've got to be around that environment. And I know if I can get people to the racetrack, they'll want to go back. And that's always the push for me. So for people that are here in our community and you don't know that we have this race, like it's next week and there are tickets available, come down and check it out. If you've never been to a race before, check it out because it's different. It's unique for Nashville. It's so incredibly demanding and unbelievable that we can pull off something like this when it's all temporary structures and all temporary road course and street course. So come down and check it out because I know when you do, you're going to love it.
So for fans of IndyCar series, you don't have to do much convincing. For Formula One fans, you've got a couple of former F1 drivers on the grid. Marcus Ericsson, the defending champ of the Music City Grand Prix. But Liz, one former NASCAR driver in the grid in Jimmy Johnson, and he participated in this race last year, of course. But how rare is that? Former F1 drivers, a former NASCAR driver in the same IndyCar race. How rare is that, especially on the NASCAR end?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And Jimmy has had a great run this past weekend. And I know a lot of people were really excited about it. Jimmy has he has a sea of fans, and it's been so good for the IndyCar series for Jimmy to leave NASCAR and to come over and be racing full time. And he's having such a good time. And in my conversations with him, it's fun. It's a little less stressful, than NASCAR. NASCAR's schedule is so long. He's a 7-time champion. He'd been doing it for a long time. He's got 2 beautiful girls and a lovely wife, and wanted to have a less demanding schedule. Wanted to have something that was challenging for him. So that is what the IndyCar series has provided for Jimmy Johnson. In return, the NASCAR fans that loved him, they have been exposed to IndyCar because they're watching it because their driver is racing IndyCar. It's been good for IndyCar because it's bringing new fans in. It also is for folks that maybe weren't NASCAR fans, IndyCar fans. I think I think people are seeing now they can put their toe in the water of another form of motorsports. You're not turning your back on IndyCar, Formula One, or NASCAR. You're just seeing that there's other forms of motorsports that are interesting. And Jimmy has been such a great ambassador for motorsports, generally speaking. And I think it's so exciting. And he loved racing here last year. He's excited about coming back. This is one of the tracks that he brings his family to because they love Nashville. And so we love hosting them here as well.
She is Liz Allison. You can hear her every Wednesday on Off the Track right here on 104.5 The Zone, 8 p.m., produced by Jonathan Schaefer, who you heard her mention earlier, of the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. Liz, thank you so much for taking the time. I know this is just a crazy period for you as we're officially a week away. So thank you again, and looking forward to next weekend. Cannot wait.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me. We'll see you guys next weekend.
Yes, we will. I cannot wait. I mean, it's indescribable how fun that event is.
It's awesome. I had not watched F1 at all yet. I was very, very early into knowing what all these things were last time when I went to this. And more so even than Drive to Survive, getting me into Formula One, the Music City Grand Prix made me a fan of Formula One and of racing. And I'm sitting there a couple weeks ago watching the Toronto Grand Prix, just sitting on my couch on a Sunday afternoon with nothing to do. I think the Braves were playing at night or something. I was like, you know what? My roommate walks in and is like, the Toronto Grand Prix is on Peacock. I was like, sold. This is awesome. So, yeah, turn me into a fan. You got to get down there. The trucks that go over the jumps. I mean, the GT race is sick. Like, it's the whole experience is unlike anything you're going to see anywhere else. It's a uniquely Nashville event. They do such a good job. I'm excited.
It's all day, every day, morning to night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whether it's the practices, as you said, the GT races, the concerts afterward, the fireworks show. Seriously, if you missed it last year, don't make that mistake again. Do not miss the Music City Grand Prix. And on Sunday, on race day, Buck Reising and I will be hanging out on the Zone General Jackson on the Cumberland River, watching the cars go over the bridge. Free food, restrooms, AC, and GA tickets. So you can come hang out on the boat with us. You can walk around to the grandstands and experience the race, come back, cool off a little bit, eat something, and it's going to be a great time. You can find those tickets at musiccitygp.com, or you can tweet at us at Buck Reising, at Lucas Panzica on Twitter. Your best Mike Vrabel impersonation, your best impression of the Titans head coach, and we're going to pick the best one and give you those tickets and play them for Mike Vrabel when he joins the Buck Reising show during training camp.
That's the best part. The fact this is a great idea by you guys that you're going to play this impression for him. I don't know if he's going to be self-aware enough to figure out what's going on, or actually I know that he's self-aware enough to know what's going on. I don't know if he'll care enough to react to what's really going on, but Mike Vrabel loves the fans. Any head coach loves the fans, and these are fans. So
yeah, so tweet Buck and I your best Mike Vrabel. Tweet us your best Mike Vrabel impression for a chance to hang out with us during the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix next weekend. The SEC stat of the day is next. It's the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone.
Is the summertime heat causing you to lose your cool? Don't let a broken down or older HVAC unit keep you from being comfortable in your home. Hey, it's Buck Reising. I have the heating and cooling company that can take care of all of your HVAC needs. That's Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. With over 20 years of experience serving all of southern Middle Tennessee, Spring Hill Heating and Cooling is a family-owned and operated company that prides itself on outstanding customer service. Spring Hill Heating and Cooling offers cost-effective solutions, such as a free service call with their repairs, plus low monthly payments on those repairs. And if you do need a new unit, Spring Hill Heating and Cooling offers 60-month no-interest financing. Plus, they can provide the financing for qualifying purchase and free estimates on replacement systems. They also back their work with 10-year parts and labor warranties. When summer is at its hottest, they are at their best. Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, with 2 locations to serve you, Columbia and Lyles, and available anytime at springhillac.com.
Welcome back. It's the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone. Lucas Panzica, Will Boling hanging out with you until Buck Reising makes his way back from the Titans' indoor practice on this Friday. The SEC stat of the day today has to do with the LSU Tigers. We're going alphabetically down the SEC, and to be honest, we're going to run out of weeks. We're going to have to cram a couple, probably do some 2-for-1s towards the end there, because we are about a month away from that Labor Day opening weekend. And even before that, Vanderbilt taking on Hawaii on the road. By the way, Vanderbilt opened up their fall camp today. Tennessee starts on Monday. That's right. So the SEC stat of the day has to do with the LSU Tigers and first-year head coach Brian Kelly. And the stat of the day is this, the number 26.5. That is the number of points per game LSU scored in 2021. Good for 12th in the SEC, 80th in all of college football. There were injuries in Baton Rouge last year, quarterback turnover, but it was a difficult offense to watch, and the pieces are there for LSU in 2022. John Emery at running back, former 5-star. He was academically ineligible last season. At wide receiver, Keyshawn Butte, a preseason favorite to win the Biletnikoff Award. But what happens at quarterback?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think anybody there knows. Miles Brennan is probably the incumbent at that position who perhaps has the inside track. You have Jaden Daniels, the dual threat transfer from Arizona State, who probably fits more of what Brian Kelly wants to do on offense. And then you have Garrett Nussmeier, who might kind of be the middle ground between the two quarterbacks. The question I have for LSU, specifically at the quarterback position and for Brian Kelly, is how quickly does his system get implemented? Is this guy willing to just come in and the terminology is the same, schematically it's the same offense? Because I don't know if LSU has the personnel at the quarterback position outside of Jaden Daniels for him to truly run a Notre Dame offense. I imagine it's not that simple. It's not black and white of, I'm either going to run LSU's, this hybrid offense or I'm just going to run mine. It's going to be Brian Kelly's offense. So I'll go ahead and answer my own question. But how does he change some of the play calling, some of the schemes to fit whoever his best quarterback is? Because the best fit has got to be Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Miles Brennan is going to fit as well into what Brian Kelly wants to do. It's one of the more interesting teams of the SEC to me this year. And I think by nature of the fact that we get such a distant gap between Georgia and Alabama and everyone else in their respective divisions of the SEC this year, you get a lot of unknowns in the SEC. I don't remember a season like this one where we have about 5 or 6 teams that could realistically win 9 games or 5 games. And I would put Tennessee within that category of teams that they could make a big jump forward. They could kind of stay stagnant and just be who they were at the end of last season. LSU is firmly in that conversation for me too.
And the ceiling completely hinges on the quarterback position in my mind. Because when you look at that defense, a little bit of depth at linebacker, depth on the defensive line at edge rusher. B.J. Ojulari is arguably the best edge rusher returning in the SEC, not named Will Anderson. And there are question marks at defensive back. But when we think of Brian Kelly as a head coach, to me, he's the epitome of a CEO head coach, right? Like, if you told me he was a CEO politician, I would believe you, just if I didn't know anything about Brian Kelly. He's the son of a politician. I mean, he's using fake accents to win over a fan base. Right. He is a politician.
Right.
So he is that CEO type. And his offensive coordinator comes in, Mike Denbrock, who spent the last 5 years at Cincinnati. When you look at the history of Mike Denbrock and his, decade right around there of calling plays on offense in college football, always a mobile quarterback. Always.
Right.
Doesn't have to be Lamar Jackson, but you have to have mobility. You have to be able to escape the pocket, to scramble for a first down. And Jaden Daniels, the Arizona State transfer, is the only guy that can do that in that QB room.
That's right.
Walker Howard has some of those traits, the highly recruited freshman, but I don't think he really factors into this quarterback battle in the short term. But the question is, will Jaden Daniels be ready? Because if he's not, they're going to have to overcome some things. And the culture change from Ed Orgeron to Brian Kelly just cannot be understated. There's going to be some growing pains, and the early part of the regular season schedule is favorable for LSU, but they're going to hit some bumps in the road. It's just inevitable.
Sure.
It's a coaching change. It's going to happen, and you couldn't have more polar opposite personalities from Ed Orgeron and Brian Kelly, and it's all going to hinge on Jaden Daniels. I can't wait for that Florida State game, the season opener.
Yeah.
And how that might set the tone for LSU. Because when I look at this team, there's so much talent in certain spots because they've recruited so well over the year, but there's also a significant lack of depth in other spots.
Right.
With how they were hit the transfer portal. I could see LSU going 6-6 this year. I could see LSU going 8-4 and knocking on the door at 9-3 this year. They are a total wild card in the SEC West or in the SEC West when we talk about.
I thought you said West.
I did say West. But when we talk about just the jumbled up mess that is basically 2 through 6.
Sure.
When you look at the SEC West, LSU is a total wild card in that. I won't be shocked if they finish 3rd. I won't be shocked if they finish 5th.
I think Tom Hart vocalized this really well at SEC Media Days when we were in Atlanta and said that this year the SEC is full of teams that could wreck your Saturday on any given week. LSU could wreck your Saturday on any given week if you are Georgia, if you are Alabama, if you are Tennessee, who's going to have to go down to Death Valley. That's a game I don't feel confident in whatsoever for Tennessee. A lot of people that want to say, 10-2 for Tennessee, it's possible. I start at 9-3. For as good as I think it could get for Tennessee because that kind of environment is going to be so crazy. The cornerback position is also a really interesting one for LSU here, just kind of quickly on the way out here. Eli Ricks and Dwight McGlothern transferred. Derek Stingley and Cordell Flott go pro. That's 4 corners last year, gone. So you add Oklahoma State corner Jarek Bernard-Converse. You have Louisiana corner Mecky Gardner. And then a 3-year Arkansas starter, Greg Brooks Jr., and then a guy in Seven Banks, who was a preseason All-American at Ohio State, has had injuries throughout his career and might be a non-factor if he gets hurt again in an LSU uniform this fall. So I don't know if LSU has a lot of experience in the secondary to keep up with what their offense wants to be on the other side of the football. But I do think this is probably a 7-5 team. And I think next year we're talking about a really big jump for Brian Kelly in year 2 once he's able to implement his system and get a quarterback running that offense that fits the scheme and the mold of what he typically has.
Yeah, I think too many people are writing off the challenge that will be Tennessee going down to Baton Rouge in that game. I mean, LSU could be in a really good spot going into that game with a ton of momentum built up if Jaden Daniels can perform at a high level and open up opportunities for John Emery in the run game and Keyshawn Butte on the outside. Because if you beat Florida State in that week 1 matchup, and LSU's more talented than Florida State, and that's a neutral site game. You have a cupcake game in week 2, at home against Mississippi State in week 3. Big opportunity there for Mississippi State, who has a ton of more continuity than anybody in the SEC, literally.
And the last time Mississippi State was at LSU, they absolutely lit them up.
And this game's in Starkville.
With Mike Leach. Right?
Yeah. And then New Mexico, and then at Auburn, who we expect to be struggling in 2022. So you're looking at LSU potentially with 1 loss on their schedule going into that Tennessee game. So that's going to be a pivotal moment for both of those teams.
Weird things happen when Tennessee goes to Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
The Derek Dooley stuff happened.
That's the last time, I think, right?
That Tennessee was at LSU? Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
2010?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
And then before that, you have Gerald Riggs Jr. in overtime with Tennessee down by 3 possessions in that game. Eric Ainge going out of the back of the end zone. Wow. I had the flu as a kid watching that game. That's all I remember. But Tennessee comes back from down 3 scores, beats LSU in overtime in Baton Rouge. Weird things happen when Tennessee goes to LSU.
Vols go to Death Valley for the first time in a dozen years in 2022. Just crazy to think about. When we come back, Coach Dave McGinnis will join us in hour 2. Titans practice will have concluded, and we'll see what we can glean from the official end. Well, they practice tomorrow, so for us, the end of the first week of Titans training camp. Hour 2 coming up next. It's the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone.
If you are not already going to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix in a couple of weeks, you need to get involved with what 104.5 The Zone is offering you. It's the General Jackson VIP Experience on Sunday, August the 7th of the Music City Grand Prix. It's going to be an incredible event that includes all-day food. You're going to be in the air conditioning. You can ride the boat down from Opryland to the track itself. You can get on and off as you like. There will be a driver's meet and greet that Lucas and myself are hosting, and included with the General Jackson ticket is also general admission race tickets and the access to the Opry post-race concert. Brantley Gilbert, Carly Pierce, Midland, and Callista Clark. It's going to be a spectacular experience that you're going to want to be a part of. So if you haven't already gotten your tickets for the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, do so at musiccitygp.com.
It is 11:02. Good morning from the Superbook.com sports desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Titans training camp continues as the team walks off the practice field indoors this morning. Been a healthy start to training camp for the two-tone blue, particularly for wide receiver Robert Woods, who discussed his recovery yesterday from the ACL tear he suffered last season with the LA Rams.
Good. Just go. Like I kind of said, kind of with the braces, more so just go and push it. It's strong enough, it's prepared, it's healed. It's more so about just actually doing it. So that's my mentality when I go out here and practice.
The Titans did make one transaction today, signing defensive back Shakur Brown, formerly of the USFL's Pittsburgh Maulers. Titans rookie wideout Kyle Phillips will join the Buck Reising show today after practice. Seattle Seahawks wide receiver DK Metcalf's hold-in has come to an end as the wideout agreed to a 3-year, $72 million extension with over $58 million guaranteed and a $30 million signing bonus. That's the most for a wide receiver ever. In Tampa Bay, veteran Buck center Ryan Jensen went down and was carted off with what Coach Todd Bowles said is a knee injury on Thursday. Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network reporting it is feared to be a season-ending injury. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Hour number 2. It's the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone. Lucas Panzica, Will Boling hanging out with you. If you're just joining us, Buck Reising still over at St. Thomas Sports Park. The Titans moved practice to inside the bubble today with the weather. Hope everybody's staying dry, staying safe as thunderstorms sweep through Middle Tennessee. Seeing tons of content coming out from the indoor practice facility today as they should be wrapping up practice right about now. And we put it out to a poll at Buck Reising on Twitter. How many training camp videos is too many training camp videos? And It sounds like the consensus is there's never too many training camp videos. So I guess I'll swallow my words on that. And I did see a couple of Titans rookies going at it earlier with Treylon Burks up against Roger McCreary, and Burks just using his big physical presence against the former Auburn cornerback, continuing to impress in his first week of Titans training camp.
Yeah, looked really good. Continues to be a good story for the Titans this week, despite the fact that Roger McCreary has also been pretty impressive this week. I think that Titans fans can be optimistic about the start that he has had to training camp so far. But another day stacked for Treylon Burks, exactly what he needed coming into his first training camp ever.
Kyle Phillips, the rookie wide receiver from UCLA, will join the show at some point in this hour. And Coach Dave McGinnis coming up at 11:20 to talk about what he's learned from the Titans practice in the first week of camp. Always interesting to talk to Coach Mack and hear his perspective on things. I wonder how much time he has devoted to the defensive side of the football. When you think about everything going into camp about Treylon Burks and the question marks around him and really the wide receiver position in general with so many new faces, curious to get Coach Mack's takeaways on the defensive side.
Yeah, and I'm also excited to talk to him again about Caleb Farley's go-go gadget arms, because I know that is one of Coach Mack's favorite phrases about any player, but specifically Caleb Farley. Go-go gadget arms. It's a good one. We've seen a lot of him so far. I want to get his thoughts on the defensive backs that have stood out to him. Treylon Burks kind of stacking those days together, and then what the next step for him is going to be, because Treylon Burks now getting in shape, stacking a couple of days together is a good start. How does he take the next step forward and become more of a focal point within this offense and feel more comfortable with Ryan Tannehill? I want to get Coach Mack's thoughts on that too.
Yeah, and how does Austin Hooper factor in here? Because that was one big takeaway from OTAs, from minicamp, was the connection that Tannehill established, maybe just because Hooper was one of the only guys there. Robert Woods is still recovering from an ACL tear, and this is months ago where Treylon Burks is having the conditioning issues. But Kyle Phillips and Austin Hooper were kind of the headlines to come out of those spring workouts, and it's been a little bit quieter at the start of training camp this week. Nothing negative has come out about those guys. But it was interesting yesterday during practice watching the Titans stretch the field a little bit less. You could see there was a clear emphasis on that on day one that we were out there on Wednesday. A couple of deep balls in the first two plays of 11-on-11 work and those walkthroughs. And the second one was that highlight reel diving catch by Treylon Burks. Yesterday, a lot more in the run game, a lot more in the intermediate short passing game, utilizing the tight ends, dumping it off to the running backs, and putting more emphasis on that end of things on offense.
It's something I think is important for us to remember as media people, as fans, as we consume all of this content. The past 2 years, the early takeaways of what camp has been have actually kind of ended up playing out over the course of the season. 2 years ago, it was the defense is getting killed. The offense is just dunking on the defense every single day at camp. A.J. Brown's wide open. Ryan Tannehill looks confident. There's nothing the defense can do to stop the offense. What did the Titans defense do that year? They had a horrible season, rushing the quarterback as well as just stopping anybody on third downs. Then what happened last year? The conversation by this point already was, Ryan Tannehill's kind of throwing a lot of interceptions. Kind of, giving the ball away a little bit. Like it's once or twice per practice that Ryan Tannehill was throwing the ball to the defense. What ended up happening? The Tennessee Titans get knocked out of the playoffs by the Cincinnati Bengals because of those interceptions. Now, this is not to say that whatever we're seeing right now is going to be the story of the season for the Tennessee Titans. That's not the reason why I bring this up. The reason I bring this up is because there are tangible things that you can take away from training camp. Maybe not from the first week and say that after 3 days, this is the identity of who this team is. That's certainly not the case. But I think this year it feels more balanced so far. There's not one position group. There's not one side of the football that is just dominating the other one. There needs to be a little bit of a give and take. There needs to be a back and forth. When you talk to coaches, when you talk to players, the best teams have balance and have that competitive balance within the locker room. It doesn't always feel like one side of the ball is dragging the other one forward to victory. I like the balance I've seen so far from both sides of the ball. Yeah, it was only a jog through yesterday, so not a whole lot we can take away.
Yeah, you're not even in pads yet.
No. But so far, I think it is a good start. The fact that not one unit is just head and shoulders above the other.
Yeah, and there also needs to be a balance in how we sort of digest that information in training camp.
Exactly.
Because you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 years ago, the story was how good the offense looked, kind of beating up on the Titans defense a little bit, and it's flipped last season with Tannehill's interceptions. And I feel like everything you see coming out of that is one side or another, like, oh, stop. Interceptions don't matter in training camp. Everyone shut up. And then the flip side of that is, oh, my God, Ryan Tannehill is going to throw 25 interceptions this year. When the reality is it's probably somewhere in the middle. It's okay to look at what's happening on the practice field and have concern because of what's playing out in front of you, or on the flip side of that, come away with a very positive energy about how you feel with what's happening in front of you. But just not overreacting one way or another, because you're right. That is how things played out last year. Now, we can attribute that to injuries. People can come back and say, well, he barely had a consistent group of wide receivers around him. And
those things are fair.
Absolutely true. But, he did throw twice the amount of interceptions in 2021 as he did in 2020, going from 7 to 14. And there were a lot of mitigating factors in that. So that's not to say that training camp, how things play out over the next couple 2-3 weeks is the end all be all, but it's okay to use that and sort of process it in a balanced manner when you look ahead to the season.
A couple of notes here. It looks like practice has officially ended because all of the tweets are happening. John Glennon, our friend, tweeting out a minute ago, all Titans aside from the 3 on the PUP list were present again today. Elijah Molden not there at the end of practice. Glennon noting did not see an injury take place, so maybe some maintenance. Buck Reising offering his takeaways on his Twitter account right now, saying Derrick Henry looking strong, planning off previously Jones' fractured foot. Says Treylon needs to find ways to make his push-off more subtle. And says Kyle Phillips needs to apologize to Kenneth George after spin cycling him one-on-one. Titans' third down pass options looking solid.
Kenneth George, former Tennessee defensive back.
Tennessee great. Vols legend.
That's right. Signed by the Titans in the spring. Looking forward to hearing that conversation with Kyle Phillips. Buck is just kind of going to pull him off to the side after practice. Might be happening right now for that discussion, and we'll hear from him later on in hour 2. Because for me, that's kind of where the attention turns after the Treylon Burks stuff has kind of been put to bed about the conditioning. And you can certainly make an argument for Caleb Farley and monitoring his progress throughout training camp because that's such a critical spot for the Titans. But for me, the attention turns to the secondary passing options for Ryan Tannehill.
Right.
Everything's looking good for Robert Woods. Everything's looking good for Treylon Burks. But after that, still a lot of new faces there. You feel like you know what you have in Nick Westbrook-Akina, but Kyle Phillips, does he kind of pick up where he left off in the spring when we were talking about him a lot? Austin Hooper, exact same thing. Chigga Okonkwo, who, by the way, will be on Blaine and Mickey today, right off the top at 105, talking to Mickey Ryan and Alex Apple. That's where I'm turning my attention when we're back out there next week.
Yeah.
I'm almost strictly going to be watching those guys on the offensive side of the ball.
Absolutely. And Buck telling us today that the press conferences of players we'll be hearing from in minutes, Nick Westbrook-Akina and Harold Landry, the 2 guys that we will see today. Speaking of Chigga Okonkwo, too, a lot of rave reviews for him. Ben Arthur of the Tennesseans saying Chigga Okonkwo continues to impress me with his hands. Haven't seen him drop a pass since he joined the Titans in the spring. In one-on-ones today, made a contested grab on a slant with Amani Hooker in coverage. Interesting. I think the pass catching options is a very solid conversation piece of training camp, because how much are we really going to learn about the offensive line not at full speed and not at full contact, especially without pads on? There's not much we can take away other than the fact, like we talked about yesterday, that Dylan Radins looks really good. Looks fit, looks slimmed down, looks athletic right now in his role, possibly as a starter for this Tennessee Titans offense this season. So I think I would agree, for the sake of the offseason, my biggest question will continue to be about the offensive line and what that rotation looks like and who goes where. But for the sake of camp, I don't know if there's a lot we're going to learn about that unit in camp, other than maybe a couple of days with the Cardinals, with the Bucks, once the Titans have some company here at St. Thomas Sports Park.
Yeah, and it was interesting to talk to Ramon Foster yesterday. He was out there at training camp, and his takeaways from Dylan Radins, really impressed with his movement, his footwork, and his size. Looked like he had put on some weight in the offseason.
Yeah.
It's probably his job to lose at right tackle simply because of the options behind him. That's such a critical spot for the Titans because you have these 2 spots up for grabs on the offensive line. And at left guard, you're really locked in a battle there between Aaron Brewer, who has some continuity with this team, and Jamarco Jones, who has started games in this league, comes over to the Titans from the Seahawks, and has a little bit of a size advantage, but Vrabel was also very complimentary of Brewer, his toughness, his explosiveness yesterday when asked about it. So there's a battle between two guys in a critical spot to replace Roger Saffold, who was a Pro Bowl left guard in 2021. But at right tackle, it's Dylan Radins. And the Titans need Dylan Radins to grab that job by the reins, because if he doesn't, that's going to be a serious problem area for the Tennessee Titans in 2022. Because if it's not Dylan Radins, who is it? Nicholas Petit-Frere, the rookie out of Ohio State? You need to add another body injected into that competition. So,
right.
You can look at both sides or both spots on the offensive line up for grabs. But for me, the importance really lies in that right tackle spot, because if one guy doesn't win it at left guard, the other guy can probably do a job. At right tackle, I don't know that that's the case if Dylan Radins does not take the steps to grab this job sort of by the horn, so to speak.
And I think on the left side of that offensive line, you also have the experience of Taylor Lewan that can help prop up a left guard that perhaps isn't as prepared for that moment and that opportunity as a right tackle that's going to be playing next to Nate Davis. No disrespect to Nate Davis. He's been a fine player for the Titans, still a young guy that has room to continue to improve, but he's not playing next to a veteran first-round pick that is, at a time, one of your highest-paid players at that position within the National Football League, like Taylor has been. So I agree. Right tackle is now where our eyes will go, with Treylon Burks being a little bit less of a concern and less of a story, and a lot of these things that continue to kind of happen in real time in front of us.
We'll talk to Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, get his thoughts on the first week of Titans training camp coming up next. It's the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone.
Country Financial is the place that you need to go if you are at all concerned about having proper protection for your home. This is something that a lot of people don't think about until it's already too late. Did you know that the cost to rebuild a home has increased by almost 50% since 2019, which I'm sure everybody can relate to, between inflation, logistical issues, all these things that have made just generally everything cost more. If something happened to your home, it's important to make sure you can rebuild. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial it can. With their additional replacement cost coverage, you can be sure your home's full value is protected. Country Financial provides insurance and financial services to help you prepare for the important moments in life, even the ones you hope never happen. So find your local representative at countryfinancial.com.
The Buck Reising Show is brought to you by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com.
Yes, it is, and that music only means one thing. Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio joins us now on the Buck Reising Show. Lucas Panzica, Will Boling hanging out with you until Buck gets back from Titans training camp. Had to move things indoors today because of the weather. And Coach Dave McGinnis joins us courtesy of Farm Bureau Health Plans. Coach Mack, good to talk to you, sir. How are you?
Absolutely. How we doing, guys? Yeah, I just walked out of the bubble and just got to my car. So they had a really good practice today. It was a longer practice, had 15 or 16 periods in it. They did quite a few things, and they got a lot done today. This was a good practice.
Coach, how do things have to be adjusted when it's a last-minute move to the bubble like it was today? Obviously, there's less practice field real estate, so to speak. So does the practice plan change in any way?
It does not change. You just have to rearrange where your individual groups are working on the field. But it wasn't a last-minute change. I'm telling you, having been a head coach for a lot of years, you look at the weather pretty close all of the time. And so they had a pretty good idea that this was going to be socked in today. So the field was already set up. They were ready to go. I got over here, about 8 o'clock this morning, and they were already set up, ready to go. And as I said, it was a very, very good practice. They put down a new turf on the indoor, which is a very, very good turf now. And so it was a very fast practice today, guys.
Coach Mack, we've seen a lot of video of the one-on-ones, the defensive backs against some of the wide receivers. How much as a coach do you look forward to the competitiveness and kind of the battle that is those one-on-ones, or your first opportunity to kind of see running backs, wide receivers, tight ends against some of these defensive backs in a competitive atmosphere like this?
Yeah, the compete part of it, just as you said, that's the big part of it. You just, you don't expect everybody to win every one-on-one on either side, but the compete part of it is the part that you want to look at. And also you want to look at somebody, that is being able to take coaching throughout what they're doing, and then to be able to adjust and to correct some of the things they might be doing to get beat inside or beat outside. It's a great time to really hone your techniques and your individual crafts. And it's also a good time in one-on-one and training camp to try some things. Try some things that you may want to be able to, as far as being able to, as I say, as a defensive back, being able to get up and and press, or be able to start up and then to come off and be able to catch a route. All of those things are things that you can experiment with and do in training camp, and one-on-one is a great spot to do it in.
Coach Treylon Burks continues to be kind of the talking point of this week. It seems like he has done pretty much everything he's needed to stack days together, and for the story about him to be what he is doing versus what he isn't doing. How good has he been in your eyes this week so far?
Well, he's been a rookie in my eyes, but he's in shape. I thought I spent a lot of time this morning talking with Rob Moore, the receiver coach who played for me for a lot of years at Arizona. And look, this guy just needed to get into condition. He was like a lot of rookies come into this league early on. They have no idea what the conditioning takes at a National Football League level. And I've been very, very impressed with him so far. He's exactly, what I saw on film when I was vetting that Arkansas film for the Titans radio draft this year. He's done nothing but improve. He's got a ways to go. Look, he's a rookie receiver, but his physical ability and his athletic skills, he's already put those on display quite a bit.
Coach Dan McGinnis of Titans Radio, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Need great health coverage with an affordable price tag? Let Farm Bureau Health Plans coach you through it. They've been protecting Tennesseans for 75 years. Coach, keeping it in that wide receiver room, Dez Fitzpatrick is a guy that Mike Vrabel wasn't shy about last season when he talked about needing to see more from him. He praised him a little bit in his press conference, I believe on Wednesday, naming him one of the offseason award winners. What have you seen from Dez and his development from year one to year two in the NFL, and how he's sort of factored in that wide receiver room?
Well, he looks like a completely different, guy to me, because he understands what it takes now. I mean, look, this is a big transition to come into this league and to have a lot of things, put on your plate early on. And of course, he goes through the fourth round pick that gets cut, comes back on the practice squad. So he had to grind back pretty much, to get back into the confidence of these coaches. And then in this off season, clearly he put in work over and above, and you can tell the difference. I mean, he is much more physical in what he does, but he's also much more confident in what he's doing. Now, this is a great time. This will be a great training camp for himself, for Treylon Burks, as you just mentioned, to have two teams come in here with completely different people. They're going to put a lot of pressure on them in practice, once we get the Bucks and the Cardinals in here. So this is a big, important training camp for both of those guys. But you asked me about Dez Fitzpatrick. He looks like a different guy to me because he is.
Coach, another young player in Malik Willis obviously has a ways to go when you consider the offense that he played in at Liberty and the transition to the NFL. How do you sort of detail the job that quarterbacks coach Pat O'Hara has in front of him with Malik Willis and the most important focal point of Willis's development to work on first? I mean, what is highest on the priority list to work on when it comes to Willis?
Well, it's a daily process, especially with a quarterback, especially one that comes out of a system like you ran there at Liberty, where you're in the shotgun completely. You're not doing a lot of whole field reads. It's a whole new world. The thing that he can rely on, his work ethic and his athletic skills. He's got the athletic skills, and in watching him work and speaking with the coaches, he's got the work ethic. He's got to stack days. And he's got to stack days, and he's got to stack nights too, because he's really got to spend a lot of time in the books, in the film, when the film goes home with him on his iPad. This is all important right now because he is in a he's operating, guys, in a completely different world now than he was operating in before. And so it's going to be a daily process with him when you start looking at him. But start talking about what he had to work on. He had to learn how to take a snap from center first. And then call plays in the huddle, and then put it all together. And you can see it progressing, but it's going to take a while. This preseason is going to be big for him. He's going to get a majority of the snaps in the preseason, which is going to be really, really good for him. And so, I mean, he's got a lot ahead of him, but he's got a lot of chances to do it.
Coach Dave McGinnis with us here on 104.5 The Zone. Coach Mack, talking about the offensive line, talking about what those guys have been able to do so far in camp. How difficult is it to evaluate guys like that before pads go on and before the physicality increases at training camp? In what ways are you specifically evaluating your linemen this early into the process?
Well, you want to look at their movement. You also want to look at their awareness, because you can still now, they still without the pads on. You can still talk. They're still running games on defensively. You can look at their awareness, and you can look at the things that you can look at the way they're able to come off together. And so I've been impressed with Dillon Radins. Dillon Radins is it looks like he's getting ready to be an offensive tackle in the league now, which is. It makes me really happy. But, again, he looks like a completely different guy too, as to what he's done with his body in the offseason. And, again, you're talking about a guy that came in here from a smaller school that played one game in the season before he came here. And, it's a shock to some of their systems when they get in here. I fully expect Dillon Radins to be fine. I expect him to be the right tackle for this team, and I think it'll be a really good thing.
It's good stuff right there. I think a lot of Titans fans will be very happy to hear that, as Dillon Radins really is one of the most important players for this team, it feels like, in this camp. Wanted to ask you, Coach Mack, as well about Rashad Weaver, a guy who is talking to the media actually right now and talking about his excitement to get pads on and really test himself next week. What have you seen from him? How important of a week will that be for Weaver to go through contact again and start to really ramp up his return? It's so easy to forget how good that guy looked before his injury last year in training camp.
Well, it certainly seemed like last year before the injury that he was on a pretty positive trajectory. I mean, he's got length. He's a violent player, at the line of scrimmage. He's got some really good rush skills. He also can set an edge against the run. I was really liking what I was seeing out of him. I liked his collegiate game. And then, of course, he's injured, and that sets any player back, but especially a young player that's right on the cusp of starting to figure out, what's going on. I've liked what I've seen from him so far. This is a big camp for him, and if he comes back and he starts to develop through this preseason like I think we all want him to, that will be a huge addition to that rotation on the edge, which will be a really, really big thing for this defense. I am looking forward to him being able to be a part of this, but he's got a process he's got to go through now, and you said it very well. Coming back from the injury, but everything right now looks pretty positive.
Coach Dave McGinnis at Titans Radio with us on 104.5 The Zone. Coach, keeping it with Weaver for a minute, he talked a little bit yesterday about his size and different ways to utilize that 6'4" frame. A little bit unusual for an edge rusher. I mean, by comparison, exact same size as Jeffrey Simmons. So for you, what's the best way for Rashad Weaver to utilize that height when coming off the edge?
Well, it's not only height, it's length, it's reach, and that's very important because the reach and length, especially if you're going to be a speed-to-power rusher, you want to have long levers so that when you shock and you get that offensive tackle moving backwards, that there's separation, because the more separation that you can get on that initial second step, then you have a lot of two-way goes. There are a lot of things that you can do. And also, if you've got length, anytime you're running games, either whether you're going to be the first man in or you're going to be the second man through on games, it just gives you an advantage. You can cover more space in that center guard area where you'll be working on when you're coming inside. Just length helps you in every aspect of it, but especially on the edge. Length is a big, big thing because separation – shock and shed is everything in defensive football in the National Football League. You've got to be able to use your hands, and you've got to be able to, and the longer that your levers are, the better off that you are to get those people away from your body so that you can move your feet and you can work towards the ball wherever you want to get. But you've got to get separation, and the longer that you have those limbs to separate with, the better off you are.
Coach, Mike Vrabel talked yesterday a little bit about the work that Treylon Burks is getting at the punt return spot, or the work he was getting yesterday at least, and securing the ball, taking care of the football, making the first man miss. How much of that do you think is actual consideration for the rookie as a punt returner, and how much of that is, you think, just trying to evaluate those traits in those situations? Like, what's the benefit of getting Treylon Burks some work at the punt return spot?
Well, I mean, he was working at it again today. I mean, I think it's big. First of all, it's just, being able to track the ball and, hand-eye coordination, that stuff. It never does hurt. And plus, this guy's an athletic dude now, and he's hard to tackle. And even as long as he is, he's got some instant get up to him. So, we'll see. But he was catching them out there today, one of several that they had catching punts. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And where that goes, but there's nothing wrong with doing it right now early.
Coach Dave McGinnis with us here on 104.5 The Zone. You mentioned the length of Rashad Weaver. The go-go gadget arms of Caleb Farley have certainly been on display. Coach Mack, this is certainly one of my favorite of your sayings of the go-go gadget arms, but Caleb Farley, with or without the go-go gadget arms, looks so much more comfortable this year as opposed to just kind of watching from the side and trying to put himself in position mentally to make plays that he wasn't able to make this time last year.
So I think that's a really good assessment by you. I mean, he really does. He looks different. First of all, he looks healthy. Of course, I mean, I know that he had a very intense off season as far as working, but when this guy's whole and healthy, I just go back to the Virginia Tech film that I vetted. I mean, this is a special dude at corner. I mean, he's got exceptional length for a corner, and he's got speed. A lot of times when you have those high cut corners, a lot of times they don't have real good transition, in short spaces. Well, he's different. He does. He can transition very quickly, even though he has high cut, in the legs, and then his arms are extremely long. And his catch radius and his defense radius with those arms is different. I mean, it just is. And so hopefully he can continue to work on that plane that he's on right now, but he's on a very good track right now. And his availability, week in and week out, and being able to morph into a spot on this defense on the edge is going to help this defense a lot, because then you can move your other pieces around inside quite a bit, and that would be a big plus for this defense this year. So I'm encouraged by watching him, but he's a different kind of talent at corner. And that's why John Robinson, I mean, he took a chance on him with an injury, the same reason he took a chance on Jeffrey Simmons with an injury coming out, because their talent is different. They're just different. And, if they would have both been completely healthy coming out, they never would have been available, outside of a top 10 pick. So, it's encouraging to watch Caleb right now. I want him to continue on this level.
Mac, one more for you. We're about to hear from Kyle Phillips talking with Buck here in just a couple of minutes. My biggest takeaway about him, yes, he's a little guy for a slot receiver and obviously fits within that mold, but he is a little bit bigger than I expected in person watching him on the practice field.
Well, here's what he's got. He's got a great innate ability to separate early. Extremely quick feet, no wasted motion with him. And the other thing is he's very, very, very violent and aggressive when the ball's in the air. I mean, it's going to be his. I was concerned about him laying out when they came in here, early on for OTAs with no padding at all on him, diving for balls. And I mean, this guy is a slot receiver that has got all those requisites that you look for, being able to get away quick in a short area and also being able to separate in that intermediate area and move the chains. And he was very, very productive at UCLA. I like what I see out of him. It's going to be very interesting to watch him develop within the confines of this offense, which I think are going to expand quite a bit. And so he's a very, very interesting player. And plus, there's a guy that's a very, very natural punt returner. Reminds me a lot of Mark Mariani as a returner because he's got a great eye for tracking the ball, and then he gets vertical quick. He's not afraid to stick it up in there and go. He doesn't do a lot of dancing when he's returning punts, and that's what you look for.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio. He is presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Coach, appreciate you as always. Hope the weather's a little bit better for you guys tomorrow at St. Thomas Sports Park.
All right, guys. Always a pleasure being on with you. See you guys.
See you, Coach. You heard him. He thinks Dylan Radins is the right tackle for this football team.
That's definitely the biggest takeaway I took from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and the comparison of Kyle Phillips to Mark Mariani, another kind of sneaky comparison he threw in there at the end. I think that's good news as well.
We'll talk about that on the other side. Maybe catch the back end of Titans head coach Mike Vrabel's press conference. It's the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back. It's the Buck Reising Show on 104.5 The Zone. Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel meeting with the media after practice at St. Thomas Sports Park. We go live to the Titans head coach now.
Was good enough to get some passes off. There's a few blitzes that maybe got us, but we'll take a look at the film. And but I know they're going hard, and I think there's improvement with some of the stuff that we've asked them to do, whether that's in certain pass protections or certain play actions. So we just got to keep working, and then when the pads come on, I guess we'll have a better idea.
How much you like the competitiveness in the fight? Maybe guys working through contact and those one-on-one drills with receivers and DBs, and do you overlook some of the contact there because it gives your offensive players a chance to fight through it?
Well, I think we do a good job, a very good job of trying to take care of each other. I don't think that there's anything that's malicious. Without pads on, you certainly want to be mindful of trying to stay up, but also playing a football. Trying to teach them the rules of if you're playing a football and you're going through the side of somebody, that's going to be okay. If you're going through the back of them, then that's a penalty. So we always want to stay up. We want to practice fast. We want to stay away from the quarterback. And we would like to avoid, some of those collisions without pads on, and let that sometimes those are unavoidable.
How do you feel about what Taylor talked about, the veterans and the professionalism of the team? How do you feel inside the building, outside of practice, so far the professionalism of the team has gone in camp?
Good. We don't have too many issues. Guys that, we ask them to communicate if something's going on. I ask them if, they need a couple minutes to collect their thoughts if something is going sideways in their life, which sometimes happens with all of us. Ask them to communicate. I'd much rather have, somebody take care of a personal situation than go into a meeting, with that on their mind, because I don't think that's going to get anything accomplished. We don't have to chase a whole lot of guys down to get lifts in and things like that. So, until I see otherwise, we got a great group of guys, and everybody's pretty accountable.
With Bud Dupree last year coming off that ACL and Taylor on different sides of the ball, but now both healthy at the start of camp, I would assume has to be a good feeling just to have those guys leading, whether it be by example just on the field or just boisterous like how Taylor is.
As many guys as we can have out there, Kayla, the better. As many guys as we can have, the better. And then I'm excited. It seems like both those guys have gotten off to good starts in how they feel and how they've been moving around. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
That's Titans head coach Mike Vrabel at the podium from St. Thomas Sports Park, where I have just come from. Hello, boys.
Hello.
How are we?
How are we?
You guys been having fun?
There's donuts here, so yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not here for the donuts. I'm here to work. At some point today, I have to do my job, it would seem.
Makes one of us.
No, I've been out on the practice fields. So a lot of interesting stuff there from Mike Vrabel. I've got some practice observations that I'd like to get into as well. I was listening to Mac on the way over here. And I am in agreement with him that the job of right tackle is Dylan Radin's to lose. That seems like it's the guy. And honestly, I feel, based off our conversation yesterday, that Aaron Brewer still has the best chance at left guard, even if I find him to be a less than ideal situation. I really think that Aaron Brewer is this year's David Quessenberry. I think you just got to eat it. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he's like an outright bad option, but it's not like they have a ton of good ones. And I feel like they do this every year, where they try to sneak one of these depth offensive linemen in a way that, okay, we'll just roll with it. And it kind of goes back to that I don't want to rely on talent thing, which is all well and good until you don't have the top-end talent there with which to execute. And you'll hear the conversation that I had with Kyle Phillips here in just a second. We'll probably play it to start the noon hour, caught up with the Titans rookie wide receiver on the sideline before I didn't speed for all of our lovely law enforcement officers who
respectfully
are within the sound of my voice.
Paxton.
Most notably. We know the cops by name around here.
Music City Grand Prix doesn't start for another week, but
they helped me get a great parking spot at the Sounds game the other day, which is terribly difficult to do for those of you who don't know. So love our law enforcement officers. Thank you very much. But In looking at all the different things that I observed out there, I just have some general practice notes, and we can talk about them as you like. What's been the focus of the I apologize for not hearing the full radio show today, but what's been the focus of your guys' conversation?
Burks as a punt returner.
Really?
The work he has been getting as a punt returner. Yes, the topic that you and I agreed to talk about tomorrow that you're going to come in and pretend like, oh, why would you talk about that? And Dylan Radins. I mean, Coach Mack, like you said, flat out said that's his job right now. I expect him to be the right tackle of the Tennessee Titans.
I'm not pretending anything. It was a simple, I simply forgot that we had scheduled to talk about that today. Don't snap at me because you're out here on this Treylon Burks punt return crusade. What do you think this is, Adoree Jackson?
Punt return
we
crusade.
Did make that comparison.
No.
We made that comparison as to say that the pure athleticism does not matter, and that guys with the intangibles of an actual punt returner like Kyle Phillips are the guys that should be put in that position.
Did Max say he was like Mark Mariani?
He did.
Kyle Phillips.
That's pretty high praise.
That's the thing that we both took away from that entire conversation. The Dylan Radins cut, of course, but that was the second part of it. We did make the point, though, Buck, that with a third quarterback on this active roster, you don't have the luxury of having somebody who's just there to be a returner. In my opinion, that is one spot where you're likely going to have to sacrifice a spot that you are giving to a special teams specialist, a special teams guy. So now one of your wide receivers, one of your defensive backs, guys that are playing other roles are going to have to add special teamer. One of them will have to add some kind of special team role to their plate if you have three quarterbacks on this active roster.
That's the thing for me, man. Malik, he looks so rough out there. So rough, so many balls through. And listen, here's let me preface this constructive criticism this way. This is what we all and you all should have expected with Malik Willis. It is just it's a scenario for him where I guess you have to really see it in practice efforts to understand just how raw he is. A lot of errant passes, both high and low. A lot of passes behind receivers and tight ends. I don't know who the new number 49 is. I haven't quite learned all my undrafted yet. But 49, it would have been a hospital ball. He would have gotten him killed over the middle with some of the passes that Malik Willis is throwing, and his ability to escape the pocket and make a play. That's great, but it can't be. That's not sustainable. Basically, it's why for all of Logan Woodside's all the criticisms of Logan Woodside, and we were having discussions among ourselves on the sidelines today watching practice in the bubble. Why can't he do the things that Woodside can do if he has to go into a game? Why can't he hand the ball off to Derrick Henry if Malik Willis has to go into a game? Why can't that be the same as what Logan Woodside can offer them? And basically, the thing that you come back to is Logan Woodside knows how to get him in and out of plays.
And he has to earn that, too, right? I mean, Mike Vrabel was asked about what's kept Woodside around. He said nobody on this football team studies more than Logan Woodside.
He does not have an independent study clause in his contract.
No.
Clearly.
I am so mad I missed that this morning.
Isn't that amazing? He studies without a clause in his contract that says he has to.
I want to talk about the Kyler Murray press conference more than anything. Like, there's a lot of interesting stuff from Titans practice. Don't get me wrong. But I want a piece of Kyler after what I watched yesterday.
Just like you want a piece of these donuts that
I don't
are
want
sitting
the
right in
donuts.
front of you?
No,
Okay.
220 by Baltimore.
I'm going to take them all then.
It's too late. I almost said training camp. I've already failed that one. 615-737-1045. What questions you have about what went down at Titans practice today? Would be happy to answer any of them. We've got a handful of observations regarding Derrick Henry, Caleb Farley. We got one-on-ones, DBs versus wide receivers for the first time. Unfortunate that it was in the bubble, kind of restrained what kind of passes that they could be throwing just because you're limited with so much less room on the sidelines. Like it's not as great a variety as you might otherwise see, but still we had one-on-one competitions both between the offensive and defensive lines today and the wide receivers and defensive backs, tight ends and running backs out there as well. It was an informative practice, I think, for a variety of different things. Because the wide receiver combinations that they're running out there, I can't tell you where specifically guys are lining up because that would break the almighty reporting rules. But the variety, like you will see a combination Again, not an alignment, but a combination of Mason Kinsey, Robert Woods, and the new guy who just got here, Terry Godwin. Like, that's out there for a set of offensive plays. And then the next one would be Dez Fitzpatrick, and I'm just giving you hypotheticals here. But basically, they are trying guys at as many different positions within the wide receiver group as humanly possible. And I thought that interesting just because, we talked about this yesterday. Robert Woods, in his best form, is a slot wide receiver in this offense. I think in a perfect world, that's exactly the role that you'd want him to play. That's the role that he was playing in Los Angeles. Buffalo did a lot with him in that position too. But when you have a true slot like Kyle Phillips is, who you'll hear from later on, and you have Robert Woods, who may not necessarily be your prototypical X or Z wide receiver, but you need certain packages, how many different ways can you deploy this collection of wide receivers to give yourself the best strategic advantage once we start to get to game plan stuff? Because they're just trying to learn these positions right now. But I think that's the thing. That about the wide receivers, before we hear from Kyle Phillips, I think that was the thing that kind of struck me the most.
A lot of slots.
All the videos that I've seen, and somebody tweeted this at us too, at 1045 The Zone. All the videos I've seen are wide receivers making plays against the defensive backs. Like, we got a tweet from somebody saying, did the DBs ever make a stop at camp today?
Yeah, I saw somebody said that the Titans, recklessly speculating that the Titans DBs had spent the night at Layer Cake last night, which is, of course, the newest rooftop club.
Oh, is it?
On Lower Broadway, yes. For those
Good to know.
who of us who still frequent such things.
I don't.
Can't wait to not find out about that.
Yeah, you specifically would hate it. You specifically, Lucas, would hate it.
What is one like a Broadway bar?
No, but he's been living in East Nashville not that long, but long enough to be a snob about where he goes out now.
Okay. East Nashville guy.
So I think he has taken on in some form or fashion East Nashville guy, which, by the way, I am a proponent of the East Nashville bar scene.
You fit in the demographic of East Nashville guy.
No, I love all of those places. But Lucas at least carries himself of somebody who has the opinion that, I don't go to these places because I have all these places in East Nashville.
No, that's right.
It's true.
That's interesting. No, but that was the question I had for you was, like, did the defensive backs win a considerable amount of reps today? And Lucas and I were talking about this before you got here too, that it seemed like 2 years ago, the offense dominated the defense, even this early into camp.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Last year, it was the complete opposite. It was an interception a day for Ryan Tannehill. It seems to be, at my far too early observation, is the offense and defense feel more balanced at this point. Although we will really learn more about that at the end of next week, this time next week.
Slay says Layer Cake is lovely, by the way, in the Zone TV
lovely.
chat.
Perfect.
Slay, who is a kindred spirit in that sense. But yes, I think that so we were, and it's funny that you bring this up because we were talking about, did Ryan Tannehill's, I'll give you 10 guesses off air who came up with this conversation on the sideline. Not for the on-air discussion. But basically, somebody, no, don't whisper in my ear. Was that in my ear or was that over the air?
that
was just to me?
Is that Schaefer?
Well, no, I'm not used to Brett yet. I don't know whether Brett is on the air when he's talking to me.
Into your ear in the middle of the show.
There's only been one voice in my head for a long, long time now. So this is new. No, but you're wrong, Brett. That is an incorrect guess. I almost said it out loud.
I thought it was a good guess, so that's why I wanted to whisper it. So
it's a good guess in terms of guess what X, Y, and Z did, but it's not good in terms of. I'll explain.
I'm going back to the shadows now.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
You didn't have to banish him.
He preemptively banished himself.
See, that's good training.
10 points to Gryffindor.
We like to see it. Here's the thing. It's easier for the DBs to lose one-on-ones. Like, it's one-on-ones.
Yeah, that's fair.
But here's what I'll say. When they broke out in 7-on-7, in fact, I'll tell you what I observed from the Titans secondary coming up next. You'll hear from Kyle Phillips as well. That's right, Will. I'm a pro. We'll do all of that, and we'll talk about the practice observations. Malik Willis, Derrick Henry. Some interesting things that I saw from 22 today. I'm Buck Reising, back in the studio at some point for my show today. This is 104.5 The Zone. Owning a business is a wonderful thing. Owning a business is a wonderful thing, but with that comes a lot of responsibility. Hey, this is Buck Reising. Now, one responsibility that you simply cannot overlook, you know this if you've been through it, is your business's accounting and taxes. You can check that job off your list by using who I trust. That's Forsyth and Hilario CPAs. Their goal is to allow you to focus on what you're passionate about, which is, of course, your business's development. Forsyth and Hilario CPAs provide advisory, tax, and accounting expertise so you can do what you do best, grow your business. Visit CPAforsyth.com today. That's CPAFORSYTH.com. Now, many people, many guys in the audience may not know that having your testosterone checked should be a part of your annual routine men's health. I didn't know that until I talked to Tennessee Men's Clinic. A lot of guys suffer from low T and don't even realize it, but it can affect your quality of life big time. So don't let your quality of life suffer due to decreased testosterone. If any of this sounds familiar, you feel sluggish, you feel run down, your sex drive is lower than it used to be, you just don't feel like you should. It could be low T. The Tennessee Men's Clinic makes it easy for you. And if you're like most men with low T, they can help you get back on track fast. Low T treatments can truly change your life. Most men experience higher energy, better gains in the gym, better mental clarity, easy for me to say, and so much more. They specialize in men's health at the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and they are reinventing men's health care. Prioritizing your health has never been more important. So give our friends at the Tennessee Men's Clinic a call, 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090, or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com.
It is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans are off the practice field to conclude today's portion of training camp. Rookie wide receiver Kyle Phillips will join the Buck Reising show coming up in just a few minutes. One note to monitor, second-year defensive back Elijah Molden did leave the practice field early today after stumbling onto the turf. Seattle Seahawks wide receiver DK Metcalf's hold-in has come to an end as the wideout agreed to a 3-year, $72 million extension with over $58 million guaranteed and a $30 million signing bonus. That is the highest ever for a wide receiver. Fall camp officially starts today in the SEC as Vanderbilt gets underway. Tennessee football will hit the practice field on Monday. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What is happening? Welcome in to 104.5 The Zone. This feels more right. No, I'm just kidding. Lucas Panzica, Will Boling, very much appreciate them allowing me a little bit of flexibility to go out to Titans practice today and see all of the things that were there to be seen. Brett Batchelor's making a go. If you call the number 615-737-1045, that is who will pick up the phone, and then you can talk to us about whatever it is that your little football-loving heart desires. 615-737-1045. So, I was out on the practice field. We're going to get into some Derrick Henry observations. I'm going to tell you about the rest of the things that I took notes on specifically today. But first, I want you to hear from Kyle Phillips, the rookie wide receiver out of UCLA. Titans draft pick this year. Treylon Burks has gathered or garnered many more headlines, but Kyle Phillips has been dutifully working at his craft. Now, I think today I was as impressed with Burks as I was with Phillips. But in hearing or in getting the opportunity to catch up with Kyle, I thought it was a good perspective to kind of see how the other rookie is acclimating to his new surroundings. Out here at Titans training camp practice with wide receiver Kyle Phillips right off the practice field. How'd it go today? How'd you feel? How'd everything work?
It was a good practice. Nice to get out there and start playing football again.
So as far as like the acclimation process for you, we were talking to Robert a little bit about just trying to get a read from the other guys who've been here before, how to do the drills, just that fundamental technical stuff. How has that been for you?
It's been good. We got a really good group of guys, so it's nice to sit back, watch how they do drills, just see what they're focused on, and just try and follow up after them.
As far as Rob Moore, I mean, that's somebody who's played in the league. That's something. Does Rob brag on himself at all the meetings? It's all right. I won't tell him.
every now and then he'll bring it up, but that's just what's so nice about having him our coaches. He's a guy that's done it, so he really understands how to get open. What it's like to be a receiver. So it's really easy to believe in what he says.
Obviously, it's different going from college to pro, no matter what the situation is. But as far as what you're learning at this level compared to what you were focusing on, we talked to you at the draft about release packages and the different techniques that you would study from different players. How have you kind of processed the new information and tried to implement? Does anything change at all?
I wouldn't say anything changes. The biggest thing is really the playbook. Just trying to master that playbook. That's kind of what my focus has been on. Just mastering that playbook so I can play faster and faster each and every day.
Did you apologize to Kenneth George after you put him in a spin cycle out there in one-on-ones?
No, I did not.
But really, it looks like the competition between the defensive backs and the wide receivers, you guys seem to be getting a lot out of it. What is that for the audience, I guess? Can you kind of describe what that looks like for you guys?
Yeah, no, we got a really talented DB room and really talented wide receivers and tight ends, so each day we go out there, it's a battle. It's really fun to compete.
You settling into Nashville? I mean, this is this is the whole thing at this point.
Oh yeah, I feel real comfortable. Finally starting to get used to that weather a little bit too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What about the weather you got to get used to?
Humidity. I'm from San Diego. It's nothing like that out there. So that was probably the biggest change for me, is just coming out practicing that humidity. But I feel really good now. I feel comfortable.
As far as the quarterbacks and the chemistry that you guys are getting and the amount of reps, there's only so many to go around. How do you kind of work with them on an individual basis and as a group to kind of make sure that you're getting a vibe for all three guys?
Yeah, just extra work after. You see a lot of guys who stay after, get with the quarterbacks. It's just some spot catching, just kind of getting to feel how the quarterback throws the ball and just building that chemistry.
Is that something I'm keeping you from right now?
No, it's all good right now. We got a little bit of catches in, but that's pretty much it. Like you said, you only get so many reps, so you got to make them count, and then after practice, just get in what you can.
As far as like the situational football part of these practices is concerned, how have you kind of assimilated to the rhythm of how each day goes? I know there's different speeds, different, whether you're working red zone, whether you're working from the 20 in, whatever the case may be. What's that been kind of like to get that schedule down?
It's been good, because that's kind of how we practice at UCLA. We weren't just going out there running plays. There was a situation, and that crazy play the best football possible, whether it's red zone, third and short, third and long, 2-minute drill. The staff does a really good job of just putting us in all those situations. So come game time, feeling good, feeling fast, and feeling confident.
This was a football team that was in a lot of 3rd and 6 pluses last year. You guys look like you got some really good options between wide receiver, tight ends, and receivers out of the backfield.
Oh, yeah, whole lot of talent on offense, so it's going to be exciting.
Kyle Phillips, appreciate you stopping by.
Yep, thank you.
That is Kyle Phillips. If he is nearly as efficient with his route running as he is with his question answering, then Titans fans will be absolutely in love with this dude.
He is, broadcasters say that is being economical with your words.
Economical is how I would generally describe that. But yeah, listen, there is a lot to like about this group. And in looking at the kind of drills that they were running today, the kind of situational football that they were running today, you saw a lot of 3rd and 5s, you saw a lot of 3rd and 7s, and I saw a lot of nice conversions made. Now, again, no pads are on. This is not 100% full speed football. This is not who's a good defense that they're going to play? Let's say the Buffalo Bills. This is not the Buffalo Bills screaming down your neck. Von Miller screaming down Ryan Tannehill's neck in 3rd and 5.
Pads are Monday, right?
Pads are Monday. Pads are Monday. We will have officially concluded the collectively bargained acclimation period that we're currently in right now. Basically, for those of you who aren't aware of what's happening on the practice field, it's just rollover. It's literally just rollover from minicamp is what this week has been like. But in looking at Kyle Phillips, Treylon Burks, who I thought made some nice catches today, but he needs to be a little more subtle with how much he pushes off the receiver, or how much he pushes off the defensive back. Like it cannot look like a swim move when he's coming into when he's getting into his break with the DB. Like he's just kind of flinging these guys around because he's a much bigger player than Roger McCreary is, for example. But I think with Burks, I saw Robert Woods make some nice 3rd down conversions today. Chig and Hooper at the tight end spot. This is as comfortable as I've felt with Ryan Tannehill's security blankets, okay? Not necessarily explosive playmakers down the field. We're not talking top-end talent when it comes to where would the Titans' best receiver rank? That matters to a degree, but it's not the end-all, be-all. In terms of can you get the quarterback, and the protection will need to be adequate, but can you get the quarterback comfortable with who he's throwing to on 3rd down when you're in an obvious passing situation, as they were so many times last year because they just kept running on 1st and 10 and 2nd and 7+, and all of a sudden you're in 3rd and 6+, and you're looking around. You got to keep a tight end in. You got to keep a running back in because the quarterback's under pressure. All of a sudden you're sending 3 wide receivers into the field, and the defense wins out the gate. They have the numbers. That's how you win. So with all of the different options at their disposal, should they be able to get adequate protection, you feel a lot better about what this offense is going to be able to do in those obvious passing down, 3rd down situations.
Which comes back to Aaron Brewer versus DeMarco Jones and Dylan Radins at right tackle.
And frankly, listen, Lawan needs to be a hell of a lot. They can't keep help on Lawan's side. Like Lawan's got to win one-on-one, and he knows that. I'm not telling him or the coaching staff or anybody within the sound of my voice anything that they don't know. Lawan can't or should not require as much pass protection help as he did. Because I think it would surprise a lot of people, even as they knew that Taylor was going through it last year. I think it would surprise a lot of people if you went back and looked at a lot of their 3rd down passing snaps, how often there's the tight end on Lawan's side or the running back on Lawan's side.
Well, Saffold struggled a little bit in pass protection, too. That's not quite his game.
Yeah. No, it's fair.
Which surprised me a little bit when the Bills brought him in.
But you're not chipping to help a guard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the tackle is there to help the guard. The chip is there to assist the tackle if, they're getting disadvantageous matchups to that side. Except Taylor Lewan can't be the disadvantageous matchup, which there were sometimes last year when it was. 615-737-1045. Yeah, the one-on-ones really caught my attention, just because it's the first time that they've done it, and we can see, tangible efforts and who's matched up on who. Racey McMath and Dontrell Hilliard made some pretty spectacular catches. I put out the video. I don't know if Dontrell Hilliard, if there was an official out on the field, if they would have called that a catch, because there was a lot of bobbling. I don't know if he controlled it to the ground. I don't think he necessarily made a football move. But it was there was a lot of great effort out there between the wide receivers and the defensive backs, or all of the receiving options that were out there catching passes. But I want to talk about Derrick Henry, because in the sessions that I saw today, again, not in pads, there was one big thing, one big takeaway that I've had about 22 that I've been wanting to observe. He's done a lot more teamwork this year. By teamwork, I mean Derrick's physically participating when they go 11 on 11. There wasn't as much from him last year in that respect at this time. So in the absence of things like a preseason game, which Derrick's not going to play, what can you kind of assess about his longevity, his sustainability, and how he's recovering to this point? Well, I'll tell you what that is coming up next. Here on 104.5 The Zone, 615-737-1045 if you want to jump in. I'm Buck Reising. Stick around. There are a lot of things in life that are difficult these days, just generally. If you've tried to order anything specifically online, you know how much longer it can take when there are logistical issues. But with everything being much more difficult these days, Two Rivers Ford will always make the car buying process easy. No matter how you like to shop, Two Rivers Ford is there to make it happen. If you know exactly what kind of Ford you want, Two Rivers Ford will custom order it for you, like they did for me. And they will deliver it to your door when it gets manufactured. Or if you have an idea of what you want, but you're not exactly sure, you can reach out to their non-commissioned sales staff, and they'll stay on the lookout for you and contact you when a vehicle that might work arrives in stock. And don't forget, Two Rivers Ford always sells below MSRP on all new non-specialty vehicles, so you can rest assured you're getting the best price. When it comes to finding a vehicle, call Two Rivers Ford and let them do the work for you. The number, real simple, 800-900-1000. That's toll-free, 1-800-900-1000. Put Two Rivers Ford on your team today.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
Now, of course, I didn't wake up in a Bugatti. I woke up in a Two Rivers Ford. What are you doing back there?
Maybe they sell Bugattis over there now.
Maybe. I'll have to check the inventory.
Bugatti's built Ford tough.
Yes. Yes, that is indeed the case. Although I saw a lot of nice cars in the park. And that's the thing that catches me up every day, because now we park in the same lot as the players with the new facility construction. And I love my car. Not to sound like a jerk, but I've got a really, really nice car from Two Rivers Ford. And it's still like you drive through the parking lot and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that a Chevy Silverado could look that way.
Well, especially when you pull in and there's a G-Wagon that you're parking right next to.
Well, it's the G-Wagon and it's the tricked out, I saw Russell Wilson walking in front of a truck the other day, pulling up at Broncos practice. You know what I'm talking about, Brett? You seen this picture?
Yeah, I saw it.
Lucas, Google Russell Wilson arrival photos and see if you cannot describe in your best play-by-play abilities for the audience what exactly this monstrosity that he's walking up in front of looks like. Because Russell, I guess, decided he's going to move to Denver and then buy the biggest, most masculine vehicle humanly possible. Like he was physically driving over a mountain to get to practice.
And while doing that, being one of the most corniest follows you can have on Twitter.
Yeah, but we need people like Russ.
That looks like the Batmobile from The Dark Knight.
That's exactly right.
Exactly what it
Except,
looks
isn't it like orange? Isn't the vehicle orange or is it black?
The one I'm looking at is like a matte black.
He's wearing an orange jersey, I think.
That's what it is.
He's wearing like a throwback Broncos jersey, but oh my goodness, like his head barely goes over the, I guess, grill that's in the front of the car.
This thing looks like it runs on coal. Like there's enough. The vehicle is big enough for there to be an elderly gentleman in a railroad hat, a black and white a zebra striped railroad hat, shoveling coal into the engine on that thing. So, anytime I arrive in the parking lot, I'm like, oh, this is what real money looks like.
A Bentley next to Kirby's Zone Sprinter.
Actually, that was a thing. That was a thing yesterday. Kirby whipping it up. I imagine Kirby rolling up anywhere with the window half down, cigarette in hand, a Pepsi in the other, with the same hand on the steering wheel, and just kind of mean mugging around as he drifts through town. He pulls up next to Kevin Byard's. I think KB had a Bentley out there on the first day of school. And so I just picture Kirby pulling up next to Kevin Byard's Bentley and Byard looking at him like, don't let that thing spew emissions onto my nice new vehicle.
And I guarantee you Kirby's getting to where he's going quicker than Byard's getting to where he's going in that Bentley.
That's right. Kirby is another one who you have to just keep an eye on at all times. Head on a swivel. But basically keeping an eye on things. So Derrick Henry, this is a team that I think Titans fans have become accustomed to them relying on players who have dealt with some kind of a substantive injury at any given point, right? Does it not feel like every year we're talking about reliance on a player at a critical position that has had some kind of injury that, if you polled 100 football fans, 90 of them would think that injury is consequential, like it would deter the player from doing their job.
What do you mean? As in an injury situation at the start of every training camp?
I'm talking about Jeff Simmons coming in his rookie year with an ACL. I'm talking about Bud Dupree and Taylor Lewan. Those are two critical positions. Edge and left tackle. Caleb Farley's got a back thing. Let's draft him anyway.
And you don't have that this year.
Julio's got hammies, second-round pick for him. So you've got all these different things. You've got players. So what are you saying? That you don't have that player that you're relying on this year that's dealt with injury?
Who's coming into training camp with a situation like that? Like Simmons recovering from an ACL, like Farley recovering from a back.
Well, Woods. Woods is the guy. Yeah?
Woods has looked about as good as he possibly could, given the timetable of when he suffered that ACL tear.
Well, not as good as he possibly could, as he could. He looks like the best wide receiver out there. But, see, I think of Derrick when we have this conversation. Now, Derrick's foot appears to be fine. And that was my biggest observation today. I was watching how he planted, how he cuts. It's not full speed, but there were a couple of different plays today. And maybe when the team releases their practice footage, the things that media are not allowed to film, but the team is allowed to film, perhaps you'll see some of these Derrick Henry touchdown runs, because we're on the sidelines of practice. During a game, obviously, we're in the press box. So we're sitting above the field watching Derrick, seeing the play develop in front of Derrick when he's getting ready to break a long one. Like, you can see the blocks taking place in front of him. Now, when you're on field level, you can see it, but from a different angle. And then all of a sudden, we're all standing on the sideline that he's heading towards, and you naturally, as one would, take a step, except if you're a defensive back in the NFL, God help you, you take a step back because there's this giant thing with a blacked out visor and all the momentum and speed in the world, like a freight train, like Russell Wilson's vehicle, the same kind of person living inside of Derrick Henry and shoveling coal into the engine as he starts to pick up steam. That thing is running at your face.
The human version of Russell Wilson's truck.
Yeah, that's what Derrick is. In a segment we like to call Google this, unless you're in your car, hands at 10 and 2. Then after you arrive at your destination safely, then Google Russell Wilson's arrival videos, because this vehicle is the Derrick Henry is the human body embodiment of this vehicle. But so Derrick's starting to pull towards the sideline, and we're like, okay, he's trying to find room. You see some blocks start to develop. Okay, there's Chig in front of him. Chig's got his guy. Lewan sealed off the end adequately, even though it's not full collision football. And Derrick Henry zooms by you on the sideline. And no, straight up. Like, I got the PR, Jared Puffer, who is one of the many great Titans PR people. Puff is standing to my left, and all of a sudden you hear, there you go. Here he goes. Here it comes. Zoom. Derek looks great.
That was Mike Keith and that Seahawks 60-plus yard run he had in that Week 2 game last year. There he goes.
All right, Brett, is that easy to find? Can I put you on the spot the way that I do with Lucas? Find me the Derrick Henry touchdown. Oh, no, Lucas is going to go back there.
I mean, do we want to put Brett to the test?
Yeah. I mean, at some point, Brett, find me the 60-yard or the 68-yard touchdown run by Derrick Henry in Seattle Week 2. I would like to hear Mike Keith's call of that. Why? You don't trust Brett to be able to find this?
It's not his fault. I don't know that he knows where it is.
So, Brett, do you know where this is? Have I done you a disservice?
I have an idea. So just give me a second.
Okay, all right. Let's see how this goes.
No. I don't want to do that, Lucas. Go help him find it.
I'll just text it to him.
But I mean, like I said, this is the day-to-day struggle for me and for people out there at practice every day. You try not to get too you try not to overanalyze what's in front of you on any given day, because it really is just at the end of the day football practice. But of the things of consequence that you're looking for, I'm looking for Derrick Henry to remind me of the size, speed, and agility outside of the physicality, because we can't see that yet. But I'm looking for the player that I know Derrick to be, as close to the athleticism and the agility that we're accustomed to seeing, and how he maneuvers on that foot. That's basically what the whole playoff game was about. Can he feel it out? Can he find ways to look like himself as he plays a football game for the first time with 6 pieces of metal in his foot? It's a lot easier 6 months later when you've had the necessary time to adapt, to heal, to train, to just get, I mean, no pun intended, but to get your feet back under you. That's the kind of stuff that we're looking for from Derrick. And as far as an execution standpoint is concerned, I have not heard the coaches losing their minds about guys being out of place. Like every once in a while, you'll hear Vrabel bellow across the field because somebody's jogging or something like that. But from an efficiency standpoint, I have felt good about the pace of their practices. Like it doesn't seem like they're having to learn what they're doing in real time. Yeah, you have some stuff with the rookies and some technique things that are always going to stand out, but it's not like through 3 days of practice, it's not been detrimental.
You'll be proud of me, Buck.
Did you do it?
I found it.
All right,
It's not Seattle, it's Buffalo.
Wait, what?
It's the Buffalo game where he says, "There he goes," Mike Keith.
Oh, okay. I think you're right.
It's the Buffalo
So
game.
wait, Lucas is wrong.
I was wrong.
Yes. Brett wins, Lucas loses. Let me hear Mike Keith against Buffalo.
Tannehill gives Henry on the right side. There he goes. 25-30, 35-40, 50-40, 30, 20, 10, 5, end zone. Ladies and gentlemen, 76 yards. Derrick Henry, touchdown! Titans, that's getting something going.
It's pretty good. I forgot what that sounds like. It's been a little while. Hi, Mike. Hi, Mac.
Feels good to hear it again.
Yeah. Look at that.
Almost there.
So, they're simulating crowd noise in the bubble, and it's just a bunch of media slaps and, staffers and stuff like that standing on the sideline. But all of a sudden, you start to hear the offensive line yelling, "There he goes! There he goes!" And he's starting to break away. That's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for from Derrick right now. And I feel about as good about him as I did at any point, as I have any point since Indy, right? Since you knew that this was going to be a legitimate adjustment that they're going to have to make. Now, the defense is the thing that I think people are excited about more than anything else. And I'll tell you something I saw about the defense today that I really, really liked. 7-on-7 is going to favor the offense, right? Even though you got safety help, you got multiple corners out on the field, you got a linebacker in coverage, you got whatever. Still going to favor the offense, yes?
No pass rush.
Theoretically, no pass rush. So, if I said that I saw the Titans ones versus the Titans ones, offense versus defense in a 7-on-7 situation, who would you say had the better day? Just without having seen anything.
It would be the Titans offense.
I would tell you today that if you can get Ryan Tannehill, Logan Woodside, and Malik Willis to hold the ball. I saw Pats. I saw them back in the pocket patting the football. In 7-on-7, if you can find ways to last for 4 seconds, 5 seconds, there's a 7-second hold on one of the dropbacks. I believe it was Woodside at quarterback because that's when I started noticing the Pat. He normally doesn't do it. Malik is the one that they're going to have to break from that because obviously that comes into ball security and things like that. But I think more than anything, what I saw from the defensive backs in 7-on-7, and Caleb Farley in particular, I really think that he's not going to, I don't think you have to worry about him. I think he's good. I think he's going to be able to play. I think he's going to be able to start at corner on the outside. And again, this comes back to three very exciting training camp practices, and you're not trying to get over your skis on it. But I feel as good about Caleb Farley as I do about Derrick Henry.
That is quite a statement.
You know?
Because with Derrick Henry, at this point, it's fair to be attentive to planning that foot that was injured last year, but he gets hurt on Halloween, right? That Week 8 Colts matchup, and that was, a 6 to 10 week window?
Yes.
That Ian Rappaport reported from that injury on Halloween, and he probably could have come back before he did, and we're months and months removed from even that game in January. So I don't think the foot injury is at the top of anybody's mind when it comes to Derrick Henry, though it's fair to observe it. So that
externally, I think everybody in Nashville's like, yeah, it's a broken foot. The foot is healed. Okay, let's go, Derrick.
Right, we're coming up on a year since that happened when you had a 6 to 10 week timetable to come back. So the foot's not a concern for people. It's just picking up where he left off before the foot injury. For Caleb Farley, I still think coming back off those injuries was a concern because we haven't seen him do it.
And that was the kind of thing that, to listen to Mike Vrabel talk about Caleb Farley yesterday, it's as much a mental thing with him as it is physical. Because not only are you having to learn the position, you're having to keep a guy engaged at a time when it has to be incredibly difficult to do so because he's not playing. Now, this time of year is different, and that's something that Mike articulated yesterday at the podium.
Yeah, and I think he can, again, this is a certain set of circumstances of coming in, not having had a whole lot of conditioning or strength training or football for that matter, and the offseason was an opportunity for him to do that, really train hard, lift, add strength and size that's critical in this league, but also an understanding of what his job is and what the offense is doing and formations that they're in or splits that they're in and recognizing all those things. And then now trying to add that to practice to where you're able to recognize those things on the field and not on the film. The film's a little slower than the field.
Which is the kind of thing that we were looking for, right? The film is a little slower than the field, which is what he's saying. Basically, how does he adapt because he's recognizing things well when he's shown it on tape. He's understanding what position he needs to be in, what the call is, what the coverage is, whatever the case may be. So how does it translate? And that's, I think, what we're seeing. Now, the sample size for Caleb Farley last year was 0 to none. It seemed in training camp, or I can't remember when he was officially medically cleared. I would have to go back and look at what I wrote or notes from last training camp because I don't remember specifically if they rolled him out there and it was just after a certain point and was just okay, he can play. Because I know he played in the preseason.
Well, he got hurt right when it felt like he was starting to get some type of quality snaps.
Yeah, but it was a shoulder. He had a shoulder thing or something like that. Maybe an ankle, maybe a rib.
He was placed onto non-football injury July 24th, activated on August 2nd.
So it was before the first preseason game. Then I think he played in Tampa because I was in Tampa for those joint training camp practices, and we saw Caleb Farley for the first time. So it wasn't full go right out the gate.
Yeah, he got 60 snaps total before he went down.
60 total defensive snaps throughout the course of the season.
Yes.
So I will say to you that based on how much of practice is open and available to us right now, because once the season starts, for those of you who don't know how it works for us, they will keep stretch and the individual positional drills open to media. But once the season starts, that's all we get to see at practice. Then they shuffle us back inside, back into the media room. Then when practice ends, because they don't want to see schematic things, then we come back out, we do press conferences. Right now, we get the whole practice. I'm watching, I can't tell you everything about what I'm seeing at practice, but because they're not game planning, I can see more of Caleb Farley than at any given point last year. Last year, the extent of my Caleb Farley exposure was okay. They're running through the drill where they've got 2 DBs or 3 DBs going at once. They tell him to drop back. Coach has a football. He goes to the left with it. They go left, right? They start to flip their hips left. He goes to the right with it. They go right. It's just these kind of positional drills that you're seeing, not Caleb Farley versus Treylon Burks in coverage. Treylon Burks is running an out-breaking route, and Caleb Farley's got to seal it off before the ball gets to Treylon Burks. Like, that's the kind of stuff I'm seeing today.
Mike Vrabel had the note, I think on Wednesday, where he talked about Robert Woods and Caleb Farley essentially doing 90% of the work. And we discussed a little bit yesterday, you, me, and Will, about Robert Woods doing every drill, but maybe being held out for one rep of every drill.
Yeah.
Can you say the same for Caleb Farley, or
full go?
It's been full go, 100%.
There's nothing out there that indicates to me that he's not participating in all of it. Now, I can't, here's what I'll say. I can't tell you, like today I watched Kyle Phillips because I knew I was going to interview Kyle Phillips after practice. So I wasn't watching every single second of Caleb Farley throughout the course of how long was that out there? An hour and a half of practice today. But there was, somebody would have noticed on the sideline among all of us and would have said, hey, did you see that Caleb Farley's over there doing some side work, or he's not taking part in a lot of this stuff. Now, Elijah Molden did get some kind of something. He didn't get carted off or anything like that. Came up kind of limping after a drill, jogged off, and I didn't see him come back out. But that was the only, really through the first 3 days, that's been the only injury or anywhere close to an injury-related situation that we have seen from a Titans player. So, Mike, audio. What Brett just told me. What do you have audio of back there, buddy?
Of them going at 90%.
Okay, let me hear from Mike Vrabel, shall we?
They're doing some things. I would say that they're probably participating in 90% of the stuff that we did the first couple days. There's some things that we're holding them out of. But the nice thing is they've been able to, when we're doing those drills, to go over there and find ways to work for a few minutes with each other, which kind of makes it nice. They're both going through the same process, and they're mirrored positions. So, for example, if during the open field tackle drill, right, we don't want them doing that right now, but they can go over and they can work releases, or they'll work something else. And we've asked them to kind of come to us with a plan of things that they would like to. We've given them a couple things, and then also, ask them to kind of think of some things that they can do to work with each other during those 5 or 6 minutes.
Now, here's what I'll tell you, because I had forgotten this, and then I looked at my notepad to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Neither Woods or Farley did one-on-ones. You didn't see any video of them doing one-on-ones today. But both did 7-on-7. So I don't know. And I didn't stay for Vrabel's press conference. I got in the car and came back so I could do some of my radio show today. But that was the big. In fact, it's the biggest note that I have in my notebook. Neither of them did one-on-ones. The guys who I think stood out. You had Mason Kinsey. I thought made some nice plays. Dez Fitzpatrick and Treylon Burks. There was a couple. I think Treylon Burks would have been flagged if there was officials out there. But for OPI. But you saw a lot of that. But I did not see, in the first time we've seen one-on-ones, Robert Woods and Caleb Farley did not compete against anybody. That was the portion of practice when I assumed that they were off working the releases and things that Vrabel's talking about there.
So this is the first training camp since when where you don't have a player that is significantly held back from injury recovery because of injury recovery. I mean, I don't know how far back we have to go to find a training camp where at the start.
There's always somebody. There's always somebody, it feels like. Because even if it's not like, even if it's not as big a deal as like Jeffrey, right, with the torn ACL, like you knew he wasn't going to play till October. Corey Davis, when he got drafted here, there was a whole conversation about Corey. I think Corey had some kind of ankle thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is the best situation they've been in that sense in a long time at the start of training camp.
I mentioned this yesterday, but again, I saw Dylan Cole starting inside linebacker snaps, and I'm like,
well, yeah, Monty Rice is on the PUP list. Yeah. And depth, and we egregiously left that out when talking about where the Titans need to build the most depth is that inside linebacker spot. I don't think we addressed that enough when we talked about that yesterday.
I think that with the inside linebacking spot or inside linebacker spot, that is, I don't want to say it's totally mitigated because it's not, but they play so many 3 safety looks that you would be surprised, again, if you went back and looked at their third down defense specifically, how often Crookshank was down in the box or Hooker is down in the box. Or you've got, Molden in, around the line of scrimmage, around the formation. Defenses like that, because you'll hear coaches talk about this. They'll give you the same look on first and second down, and then on third down they're gonna make you scream, right? Because they know if they've done their job well on first and second down, they know what position they've put you in. If you're 3rd and 5+, they're gonna send all kinds of nightmare stuff at you that you haven't seen at any other point. Because early downs, they're going to let you have a little something, or it's not going to be. They're just going to try to win, and if they can't win with their base defense, then that's when you start seeing all kinds of crazy blitzes and pressures. But as I look at what that means for them at this point, Robert Woods kind of talking about Caleb Farley and the individual work that they're getting together yesterday. For those of you who didn't hear his press conference, I think it's relevant for you to for us to hear that again.
Yeah, for me, Caleb is he's a resource for me as well. I know he's a young player, but he's young, talented, strong, fast, quick. And I think for me, being able to train with him and rehab with him, being able to do some of these shuttle presses, run hills with them, work releases with them. So that's someone, even just condition with them. That's somebody who I could work with, who we could work with each other and feed off of each other. Being able to run hills, having somebody next to me compete, and then come out here and work releases, and we have being able to work through releases and talk about my experience and what he likes and how he plays, and really just like I said, it's still in reps any kind of way that we can, but just really having somebody who's young, being able to keep me young and being able to just work and run and really just feel useful like that.
Robert, what are your impressions of him, Robert, on Caleb as a corner here early in his career?
Yeah, I like Caleb. I'm expecting big things from Caleb. Hoping that he plays really well for us. Came out strong, had 2 interceptions on one of the days. But really just he's big, he's strong, he's physical, he's fast. Really just need him to make plays for us, and he's done so this far.
I heard Coach Mack talking earlier with you guys about length with Rashad Weaver. This dude is the longest corner they've had out there and at any point in my time covering the team. Like Adoree Jackson was not that. Logan Ryan, Malcolm Butler, they are not what Caleb Farley is. Farley looks like one of the receivers out there. Treylon, Burks, Nick Westbrook-Akina, Racy, Dez, they're all tall, they're all long. Farley he takes up so much more space than these other guys that they have perpetually had running. Maybe this is a Dean Pease preference versus now what Shane Bowen is looking for. Or maybe he's just the kind of athlete that you don't see that often and he can play corner and okay, we have the opportunity to get him because he's hurt. But I think that what they have at corner with Farley, I think it gives them a lot of versatility because he just covers so much ground. And then once you throw the ball up in the air, it's so much easier for him to be able to defense it.
They're so insanely young at that spot.
I told you earlier.
I mean, we were talking about it earlier this week. Will and I were looking at it as we talked about the signing that they made earlier this morning from the USFL. I'm trying to pull up the name again. It was Shakur Brown, the former Pittsburgh Mauler.
Weren't they terrible this year? The Pittsburgh Maulers?
Will and I were talking about it. Is that the franchise that had the controversy of cutting a guy because he wanted pizza over chicken salad?
That was I think that was like the first week of that. I think Fox Sports 1 is doing some kind of like inside USFL thing. Yeah.
So it was the Maulers.
That's right. That's correct.
They cut a running back over that. Yeah, that created a big stink. But I mean, Brown went undrafted in, I believe, 2021 out of Michigan State. His final season at Michigan State was 2020. So 23 is their oldest corner, right? Third-year pros. I mean, Christian Fulton and Chris Jackson have to be the leaders of that room.
Is Amani 24 yet?
No, he didn't have a birthday just now. That was Jeff. He's about to be a dad.
No, I know that. That's not. Is that your way of stalling?
That's my way of stalling while I look it up. He's 24. Yeah, he turned 24 in June.
Okay, so he just turned 24. So now with 24-year-old Amani Hooker, it's only he and Kevin Byard that are over the age of 23.
And neither of them are corners.
That's what I'm saying. Like so you're talking about a lot of youth out there. And because what the Titans do specifically on third down has been so much predicated off the sky. So you got to know where you're supposed to be. Otherwise, you will leave a glaring coverage gap because of the way that Bowen and Vrabel and that staff are going to game plan once you get there. That's why that independent study clause that Caleb Farley did not need, but apparently Kyler Murray did for a hot second, Can we do that at some point? Can I do that before polls? I'm so jealous.
We can do that before polls if you want.
I need to say something about that.
Right. We did it like 2.5 hours ago.
Okay. Well,
we can bring it back.
It's a new audience. Anyway, I feel good about the secondary. And I feel good about the only thing that stood out to me today, though, that I didn't like about the secondary. One-on-ones, Christian Fulton. He got beat twice, and he's just out there mugging dudes in one-on-ones. Buddy, if you get penalized in one-on-ones, you are going to get chewed by the coaching staff. And that was exactly what happened. Can't be doing that. A little more discipline from Christian Fulton. Even though we know one-on-ones are hard for the DBs. All right, we're going to wrap up the show. I feel like I just got here because I did. We'll do some polls, and then I'm going to blow off some steam about this Kyler Murray nonsense. That's next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone. QC Kinetics is the place that you need to go if you are having trouble getting up and moving, whether you deal with joint pain, arthritis, or a nagging injury. You know that the traditional treatments for such pains of pain meds, steroids, potentially surgery, it's not the route that many people want to go. Hey, it's Buck Reising with great news. Now there's a better way here in Middle Tennessee from the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine with an advanced, exciting, and natural alternative that can give you lasting relief using your body's own healing power. Steroid shots are toxic to your joints. Pain meds are addictive. Nobody wants to go under the knife. It's 2022. Those are the old ways. They're out. You don't got to live that way anymore. You got the regenerative medicine that can restore and repair damaged joint tissue using natural biologics, no drugs, no downtime, no surgery. QC Kinetics regenerative protocols can address any pain in any joint and give you quality of life that you deserve. So give them a call, 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024. What am I going to do? I don't know. What are you going to do? Welcome back. It's a Friday. I just now realized that.
Kind of.
I went up to Puff. I went up to Puffer, Jared Puffer, Titans PR today. I go, any idea who I've got on the show tomorrow? Puff looked at me, you got somebody tomorrow? Like for players. This is the person directly responsible for orchestrating our training camp interviews. I had no idea that today was Friday. I had no idea that tomorrow was Saturday.
It's way too early in football season for you to be losing track of time like that.
What do you mean? I'm going to be – because Dara asked me what we were doing this week, and I was like, I don't know what you're doing. I got practice from 8 to 1 on Saturday.
Focus on the grind.
Okay. What's the Russell Wilson, the terrible Russell Wilson promotional Broncos promo thing?
Let's ride.
Let's ride.
Let's ride. Broncos country. Let's ride. Goodness.
Yeah, and now a bunch of college football quarterbacks are imitating that.
I know. It's a plague.
JT Daniels, West Virginia did it. Spencer Rattler did it at South Carolina. I'm loving that stuff coming out.
Do you think that Russ is in on the joke? Because I don't feel like Russ is in on the joke.
I don't know if he realizes it's a joke.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ever in on the joke.
Do you think that Russell Wilson sees all the quarterbacks imitating him at the college level and is like, I'm making an impact on those guys?
Did you see a couple weeks ago when people were putting out those tweets, like when I text you this emoji, it means this? Russell put out a phone emoji and says, when I text you the phone emoji, it means I'm not on my phone, I'm working.
Russell Wilson is like the Butch Jones of NFL players. Like, he's never in on the joke.
It's so bad. All right. Can I talk about, do you have audio, Kyler Murray, Brett? How long is it?
It's about 3 minutes, but earlier we pulled it down because Lucas said once he starts talking about high school, it becomes completely irrelevant.
Yeah, once he
cited
cited his high school record, I was like, let's get out of here.
I want you to play this for the audience again because Kyler Murray, for those of you who are unaware, he signed a big new contract with the Arizona Cardinals at the end of last week. He had a clause. It was reported there's a contract clause that required Kyler Murray outside of the facility, outside of the meeting rooms, to do 4 hours per week during the regular season of independent study, which just means, hey, Kyler, do your homework when you're not here, okay? Just please do 4 hours of homework each week before we play an opponent. So this was reported. It was ruthlessly mocked across the internet because, of course, it should be. How are you going to be a grown man, a professional athlete, and have in your contract, by the way, the Cardinals feeling comfortable giving him that much money, if you even need to include that kind of clause, whatever.
By the way, he's wearing a T-shirt in this press conference that says "Easy Money" with the S as a dollar sign.
Yeah, the irony cannot be ignored.
Oh, you little bleep. So you got a quarterback who you're perpetually treating like a toddler, and Kyler Murray is outraged that we would make fun of his independent study clause in his contract. How dare we speak about Kyler Murray in such tone? So much so that he feels the need to host an emergency press conference.
Today, I'm talking today because, I feel it's necessary, with what's going on as far as regarding me and the things that are being said about me. It's almost, to think that I can accomplish everything that I've accomplished in my career and not be a student of the game and not have that passion and not take this serious is almost, it's disrespectful, and it's almost a joke, it's, to me, it's I'm flattered, I'm honestly flattered that y'all think that at my size I can go out there and not prepare for the game and not not take it serious. It's disrespectful, I feel like, to my peers, to all the great athletes and great players that are in this league. This game's too hard. To play the position that I play in this league, it's too hard. And I don't do this often. I don't talk about myself, but today I feel like I have to. And so I'm going to list the accolades, to go 43-0 in high school in Texas.
All right, shut him up, Brett. I don't
care.
That's
the breaking point. Nobody else has done it.
which is amazing.
Win the Heisman.
Brett, whenever you get off the phone, I no longer want to hear from Kyler Murray at your great convenience. At your convenience. Thank you very much. Do not cite to me your high school accolades. What a clown. An absolute clown. If I didn't think that Kyler Murray was a child before, not just because of physical appearance, not just because of smaller than average NFL quarterback stature, none of this, okay? None of this. It's an embarrassment for him. It's not almost a joke, Kyler, that we're talking about your contract away. It is a joke. You are the joke, bud. Like, welcome to the internet with the rest of us. Boo-hoo. And to whine about it afterwards. And who is looking at Kyler Murray for the better after he gives that press conference? Not a single solitary soul. Leo in Franklin, quickly before we get some polls. Hello, Leo.
Hey, Buck, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, real quick. Coach Mack can probably verify this, but I suspect that all of these team-issued tablets that have all of this game planning and film review that's required, I suspect the team has the ability to know how much they're used when the player has them. And
I don't need Coach Mack for that. I know they do. I know they do. Like they have a program that tracks how many hours each player has spent with their respective iPads. Yes.
And so to me, that right there is the genesis of where this clause in the contract came from. And as a side note, I think it's interesting. Cliff Kingsbury has never come to his defense and said, oh, he does a stellar job of review and all of this. So I think that's the other thing. His coach could have easily shut this down by saying he does a stellar job of review and preparation and game study. That's never been said. So I'll get off and let you finish up. Good job, man.
Cliff probably asked for the clause.
I was so close to playing the music.
Oh.
So close.
Was this your first time all week?
It would have been the first time all week.
Would have been his first.
Yep.
Well.
I've only done it one time ever, and I accidentally blasted the guy on accident because I played the wrong key.
There will be time next week. Give me some polls.
Zoinks, like, hey, Scoob, stop the count, stop the count. Yeah. The polls have closed. The votes are in. It's time for a poll update, Scoob. A poll update? Yeah. Zoinks, Scoob. Here's Buck Reising Show daily correspondent Lucas Panzica. Lucas Panzica? Yeah.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford. Custom order any new Ford from Two Rivers. They will deliver it to you when it gets manufactured. Who is best equipped to win the Titans punt return job? Daniel, Karen, Kenneth, Kyle, JP, Jack, all say Kyle Phillips.
Yeah. It sounds like Coach Mack would agree. I mean, Trenton Cannon is probably the biggest competition that he has just because he's got time spent. Like he's been a returner to this point. But yeah, Kyle Phillips has the skill set that would best equip him for that job.
What is LSU's ceiling in Brian Kelly's first season? 47%. The majority say it's 8-4. 39% say it's in that 6-6, 7-5 range, just getting to a bowl game. And 14% say 9 to 10 wins or more.
What did you guys decide on?
We didn't. I mean, LSU could go 6-6 this year. LSU could go 9-3 this year.
Oh, you can't ask people a question then and not take a position?
I'm not doing record predictions. What do we always say about record predictions?
Wait. You're too good to do the record prediction, but you're going to ask everybody else to?
Ceiling is different. Ceiling, okay, what is their ceiling?
Yeah, what's the ceiling?
I'll say 9-3 is the ceiling.
Okay, I'm so glad that we could talk you off the pedestal.
But this team could go 6-6 this year, and it would not shock me. It depends on what Jaden Daniels does, the transfer from Arizona State.
Indeed.
How many training camp videos is too many training camp videos? Mark Mariani says there is no such thing. Lindsay says it's never enough. Titans Time podcast says no such thing. Yep. Travis says 70. I love how specific he was.
So that's the first time that you've been in one of those group texts where I've sent a bunch of practice videos?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm wrong.
No, that was a light day for me. Imagine if I had full roam. We can only go so far in the bubble. I would have gotten many, many more positions. You would have been inundated with the amount of... You know what... There's no pictures of my family, my friends, my loved ones, my cats on my phone. No, it's just all...
Just ladder drills.
Just damn ladder drills.
What's the more annoying name change? Darius Leonard switching to Shaquille or Robbie Anderson going from Robbie spelled with a Y to Robbie spelled with an I-E?
No.
He did it like 20 minutes ago.
He did that today.
Bleep you, Robbie Anderson. No. You don't get to do that.
What is more annoying to you?
Oh, it's for sure Robbie Anderson. Like, if Darius Leonard wants to go by his middle name, like, okay, whatever. It's annoying. I think it's unnecessary, like, at this point in your career, whatever. But Robbie Anderson, he doesn't like the Y?
He says it looks better on paper if it's IE.
Actually, I don't disagree with him. He may be onto something.
Yeah,
there.
it's definitely Darius going from Darius to Shaquille Leonard, because that's going to trip up way more people, because Robbie is Robbie either way. It's just the way it's spelled.
Do you think he has like something that he wants with his name printed on it, or like a chain or something like that he wants Robbie on? He's just like, he looks better.
Maybe it looks better on a tattoo or something. I don't know. 64% say Shaquille Leonard is the more annoying name change.
Yes, I think I'm inclined to agree now.
Yeah, that will trip up way more people than Robbie going from Robbie to Robbie. Those are the polls.
That is the show. For what little of it I was here. Lucas and Will did a great job. Many thanks to Liz Allison, who I love. I'm so sorry that I missed the opportunity to chat with Liz.
Send us your Vrabel impressions for a chance to hang out with us on the General Jackson for the Music City Grand Prix, the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix.
Like Views of Brentwood, who writes, had a great time with y'all bowling and taking shots. Hope to join y'all again another time for an amazing charity event from Kelsey and Will. If you want to go to the Music City Grand Prix with us on the General Jackson, all you got to do is send us a Mike Vrabel impression.
Tweet it to us.
On Twitter, @Buck Reising. Blaine and Mickey, they got you next.